Aita for eating too many cucumbers. This is perhaps the most bizarre Aita post I have ever written, but I'm honestly so confused. Like I feel like I can't possibly be TA, but then sometimes people are too blind to see their own flaws, so maybe I really am. For as long as I can remember I've had this quirk. I guess you could call that I never snack on anything other than cucumber. I shouldn't say never technically, since socially I'll get ice cream or eat a few chips at a party. I'm not a picky eater by any means, but my snack of choice has always been cucumbers. I eat pretty healthily anyways, so a lot of fruits and veggies are a part of my diet. Since veggies are lower in calories, I have to eat a lot of them to eat enough, so I'll usually have some sliced cucumber in my purse that I munch on throughout the day, and I'll always have a cucumber in my car that I just eat whole when I'm driving. I go through several cucumber daily. Although it's not healthy, I've had days where I've felt really depressed and overwhelmed and have binge eaten nothing but cucumber. I think I've eaten perhaps 35 on very extreme days. Recently this quirk has begun to drive my 22F, BF, 33M, of 6 months insane, his words not mine. He says it's highly inappropriate to carry them everywhere with me. We spent last weekend at his parents' lake house and I provided my own cucumber to snack on. One night before bed I was in my room gnawing on a cucumber like a savage when his mother walked in. Under normal circumstances I never would eat that around others, I'd slice it up. She was puzzled, but chucked and said, "My, you do like cucumber." My boyfriend later told me that I humiliated him with my childish and immature eating habits. I told him that his mom caught me in a low moment. He was being ridiculous, since he eats a bag of chips every day and I don't bat an eye. He told me that chips were a normal snack and whole cucumbers were deranged. He told me I needed to stop eating cucumbers and that my behavior was becoming a deal breaker for him. I feel really bothered, but I think cucumbers are a weird hill to die and I don't want to lose my relationship. So Aita Reddit. I just like to add that my boyfriend has never expressed any issue with my cucumber habits before now. The incident in question was because around 8 p.m. I was getting really hungry and I don't know his family super well, so I didn't want to go rummaging ask for a snack and I didn't want to bother them by asking for a cutting board or something to cut up my cucumber because of, well, mild social anxiety. So I shut myself in the guest room and figured I'd just snack on a cucumber quick. I don't usually go hide and eat cucumbers, huh? But then his mom walked in looking for my BF presumably and was a little surprised but seemed amused and not upset or anything. I honestly didn't think it'd turn into such a big deal for him. Comments. Commenter 1. NTA, dump your boyfriend and enjoy your cucumbers. Note, I personally find cucumbers disgusting, and it would still never occur to me to care about this. Commenter 2. I mean, it's not usual, but people have quirks, and if he's controlling about cucumbers, didn't think that's a sentence I'd write. Find a man with bigger concerns in his life. Commenter 3. This isn't a quirk, it's disordered eating. The boyfriend may be an asshole, but this is by no means a quirk or even remotely normal. She does have a problem. I'd be concerned about this too, although probably not because my mom saw her eat it. Update. I didn't expect my first post to really get any attention, so I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to read it and give your judgment. To those of you who expressed concern for my cucumber addiction that I have an ED, I can assure you I am perfectly healthy. I wouldn't consider myself addicted, nor do I have an ED at all. I just really enjoy my cucumbers. I can go days without eating them. I don't need my cucumber fix, it's just if I'm going to snack I'd prefer to eat a cake. I would consider the amount I snack on cucumbers proportional to the amount my BF or any normal person would snack on chips or other junk food. I just occasionally eat more since they're so low in calories. Additionally, I have had a few cucumber binges. I am well aware that those are not healthy, just like binging on junk food isn't healthy. But that's extremely uncommon for me, and for the most part one eat a well-balanced healthy diet. However, I will talk to my doctor about it to ensure that it is not worrying. As for my boyfriend, we ended up calling it quits. I was pretty hurt at first, but I think perhaps his huge reaction to cucumbers was indeed a red flag for controlling behavior. I think that he was trying to call my bluff, expecting me to give up my cukes for him, so the breakup took him a bit by surprise too. How it went down was that I told him we needed to have a chat. I told him that it was unacceptable to tell me what I was allowed to eat. I added that if listening to me chow down on cucumbers was what bothered him, as some of you in the comments noted, I would avoid eating them when he was around. Apparently, the very idea of me eating so many cucumbers was driving him nuts, not the noise. I decided to try and compromise. He's a pretty heavy drinker and will get drunk pretty often. I know that it's very bad for his health and I have expressed that concern in the past. I told him that I'd give up cucumbers if he gave up alcohol. He declined my offer, threw out a few uncreative insults and expletives, and I am now writing this from my mom's couch with a cucumber in my hand and a cucumber in my heart. I'm still unclear on why the cucumbers were such an issue, why I could never eat them again, why me suggesting he give up alcohol was such a big deal, among other things. But I guess I'll never know now. Edit, OMG, thank you so much for the awards. I'm so honored. And I'm really glad to know those are hugs. I always thought they were judgmental Ewoks. Edit 2, I seem to have forgotten to add this as it was a common question on the original post and I'm seeing it in the comments now. No, I did not eat 35 of those mammoth cucumbers. My eating habits may be odd, but I'm not completely insane. I think on my last cucumber binge, which occurs super rarely and it was quite a while ago, I had maybe 3 or 4 big ones and the rest were the mini cukes. I do buy a lot of them at the grocery store, but I have a cucumber dealer who hooks me up with huge batches. And for those of you upset at my use of the word cuke, here you go. May your lives be enriched, smiley face. Edit 3, just for some added clarification for those who think my boyfriend is completely justified in his cucumber hate and that I'm a lunatic, I agree. Sort of. If he had been bothered by the chewing or concerned about my health, I was ready to talk about it and work something out. I didn't enter into the discussion for a fight or with the intention of breaking up. His attempted grasp for control over my food wasn't even the reason why I broke up with him, but when he started shouting at me and called me a bitch, which he had never done before, I decided to end things. Comments. Commenter 1, thanks for the update. I didn't see the original post before now but dang, what a ride. Glad you're rid of him and his anti-cucumber agenda. Commenter 2, I've never known a man so anti-vegetable before now. To fool by filling my pockets with cucumbers. I like cucumbers. A lot. They're my absolutely favorite snack food and I always try to keep them on hand. I've had a few awkward cucumber-related incidents in the past. Cucumbers falling out of my purse, my ex-boyfriend opening my fridge only for those noble cukes to spring forth and attack him. The same ex-boyfriend banning me from my snack of choice, the list goes on and on. Although this particular horror happened about 3 years ago, I think I've finally dealt with the trauma enough to recount this nightmare. I think most of us can agree that the TSA came straight from the depths of hell. There are very few things in life that fill me with rage, but those that do often happen to have meddled with my cucumbers. Usually, as a petite, blonde woman who is often mistaken for a child, profiling is on my side and I can breeze through security checkpoints with no issue. However, luck apparently runs out when one's pockets are laden with cucumbers. Who would fill their pockets with cukes right before heading to the airport? One may ask, clearly only a cucumber fanatic with very poor judgment, and not enough time to cut them up for a lovely spring salad. Standing in line always makes me anxious, as I'm worried that I'll annoy the person behind me by taking too long. This is especially true for security checkpoints since you need to remove your electronics, liquids, shoes, and place them all in separate bins before getting scanned. On this particular day, I had 2 bags to manage, my laptop, camera, phone, iPad, liquids, and a whole bunch of mini cucumbers to handle. At the time, I was wearing sweatpants in which I had about 3 to 4 cukes stuffed in each pocket. Although I had planned on transferring them into my bag before even entering the airport, my nervousness mixed with anxiety must have caused it to slip my mind. Even while standing in line at the TSA, I had completely forgotten about those little green babies I harbored in my pockets. As I stepped through the scanner, no alarms went off, so I figured I was in the clear. I was wrong. A very tall, terrifying woman approached me. She pulled me aside. I had been randomly selected for the first time in my 19 years. Suddenly I remembered the cukes. I looked down and noticed the faint bulge of my pockets. My mouth ran dry. I wanted to say something, to confess, but I was frozen in place. The words wouldn't come out. The woman began her pat down, over my arms, down my abdomen, down my leg. She stopped. I knew I was done for when she asked me if I had anything in my pockets. Upon my affirmation, she asked me to remove the items. Very slowly I removed cucumber after cucumber and placed them into her outstretched hands. Her face remained like a stone-cold statue. She claimed that cucumbers were included with liquids and would need to be placed in a half-gallon Ziploc bag with my other liquids in the future. She did not return my cucumbers, but rather, I watched in horror as she deposited them in the trash. My tiny cucumber children, ripped away from me. Cucumbers a liquid? What nonsense. I was released from TSA custody and I walked away with a heavy cukeless heart. So to anyone who happens upon this, take heed and don't leave your vegetables on your person while in the Chicago O'Hare Airport, you will be robbed of them. TLDR, I left my cucumbers in my pockets and the mean TSA lady stole them from me claiming they were a liquid. Comments. Commenter 1. Lady, we need to adopt you into our family. The running joke on my dad's side is that our family crest would be a cucumber crossed with an aubergine because we consume a ton of them on the regular. No joke, 5 kilos of cucumbers won't last 3 days in my family household of 4. There are cucumbers in our cars, cucumbers in the nightstands, and cucumbers in our bags. I remember we were going on a hike once and my baby sister came out of the house with like 15 cucumbers tucked into her belt like an overarmed, crazed toddler with too many grenades. Mind you, she was 19 and driving. We have successfully brought cucumbers on planes and let me tell you, it is exceptionally amazing to crunch on them looking out of the window 30,000 foot up. Stories number 2. I miss my husband so goddamn much. I, 35M, divorced my husband, 36M, 3 years ago. And God, I miss him. I asked for a divorce for a few reasons, most of which being that his depression got exponentially worse day after day and he refused to seek treatment. Sometimes he wouldn't even go into work and ended up getting fired from his job. I stayed with him for so fucking long, praying that one day he would start trying to get better. It was all I ever wanted, but that day didn't come. I sobbed the entire time signing those papers, and when I handed them to him and asked for a divorce, he just gave me the emptiest, deadest look and signed them without a word. My heart felt like it had been shattered with a hammer, anger and sadness and fear tied together in the world's tightest, ugliest knot and inset deep into my chest. I put on a brave face for my friends, tried to frame it as shackles coming off and a new beginning, but it was a lie. It just hurt, and it keeps hurting, and it will never stop hurting. He was my soulmate. I'll never love anyone like I loved him. He used to be so sweet and loving, so passionate and happy and every other wonderful thing a man could want from another. They say each day gets easier, but it isn't for me. It's been 3 years and I'm still reaching over to the other side of the bed in the morning to pull him close, and it always stings when my hands touch fabric and not his skin. It's been 3 years and I'm still expecting to see his car in the driveway when I get home from work. It's been 3 years and my heart isn't any less broken than the day he left. I've been stalking his socials, I'll admit. He's been getting back to the gym, started meds, and I see him smiling so genuinely in these photos. He looks so incredible. Maybe if I had just waited, he would have changed his mind and went to a doctor like he is now. Or was it me that held him down? Was I making it worse? I hope not. I want to go over to his place and just fall into his arms and beg him to take me back. Maybe he's wishing the same thing about me. If there's even a chance I could have my boy back, I feel like I should try. I'll never know otherwise. Edit. 1. I am a homosexual man. My husband is a homosexual man. I am not a woman. Yes, I know I'm effeminate and kind of emotional. Get creative. 2. My husband was a binge drinker. He refused treatment no matter how much I begged. We got antidepressants but he wouldn't take them. I know he started meds now because he's posted about them and his 2 years sober chip that he got last month. 3. I never stopped loving him. I never loved him any less. Near the end of our marriage, I started drinking to cope. The second I realized he was dragging me down with him, and I couldn't help him anymore. I didn't dip the second it got hard. Many of you are being kind of rude. I'll accept that I wasn't the perfect husband, nobody is. But claims that I never loved him are just wrong and make me feel sick to my stomach. Edit 2. No, I am not the catalyst for this. His depression started when his young brother died terribly and unexpectedly. It's not because he just hated me so much. We were childhood sweethearts and had been together for years when this happened. Comments. Commenter 1. Sometimes, people just cannot progress until they hit rock bottom, and maybe you leaving was that for him. It doesn't necessarily mean you held him down, he just couldn't find the desire and motivation to progress while you were holding him. Don't beat yourself up. It wasn't your fault he was sick and didn't want to ask for help. In the end, we all need to want that help, without it all other people's efforts are worthless. In the end, if you end it amicably, you can always hit him up and ask how he feels. Maybe he'll ignore you, maybe not, but you've tried. And stop stalking him. That is keeping you from healing. Reply, thank you, I needed to hear a lot of this. Maybe I'll call him just to see how he's doing. He doesn't hate me, I know that much. I'd like to see him regardless. Commenter 2. If you do this, just be honest with yourself about your motives. Commenter 3. The shock of divorce probably forced him to change. Chances are if you still stayed together, he would be the same. Update. Well, with Reddit's advice, I did it. A few days ago, I called my 35M ex-husband, 36M, whom I divorced after 6 years when he refused to seek treatment for his depression. I called him later in the evening. It was the first time we'd spoken since a bit of trouble he'd had while he was still drinking 2 years ago. He picked up on the second ring. Our conversation was a little stilted at first, as to be expected, but he said he was really glad to hear from me. We ended up meeting up for coffee yesterday as so many of you suggested. I'll admit, it was kind of hard to see him, but in a good way. He looked so much better than the last time I had seen him, but he looked exactly like the man I married. He had put off a ton of weight, he gained like 75-ish pounds during his struggle with depression, and before some dick says so, I didn't leave him because of his weight gain, he looked way healthier and very put together. I'll just say it, he looked incredibly hot. What made it hard was that I couldn't kiss him hello like I used to. But God, the way his eyes lit up when he saw me, I barely needed to. We got our coffee and sat, and he updated me a little on his life in the last 3 years. What really turned his life around was in part the divorce, but more so a DUI. Nobody was hurt, he was caught a few blocks from his apartment. He's since gone to rehab in Al-Anon, gotten his license back, and had to use a breathalyzer whenever he started his car for a while. He hasn't had a drop of alcohol since, and I told him I was so fucking proud of him. He's also started antidepressants, and made a point of telling me that they're not SSRIs, but when I asked what that meant he got embarrassed and told me never mind. Bottom line is that they've been helping him, he's back to being a gym rat, and he's almost completely turned his life around. This was around the point I started tearing up. It just felt so good knowing he was okay. Better than okay, he was good. I also apologized to him for not sticking by him. He cut me off and said I had nothing to apologize for. He was a wreck, and I was being dragged down with him. That also felt good to hear. I apologized for not contacting him much during the last 3 years. That apology, he accepted. He was dating someone for a few months, too. He broke up with him once he tried to get him to drink on New Year's. He seemed dismissive of the guy. Guess it wasn't too serious. We got up and went on a walk after a few hours, and I think we both realized it felt like a first date. I had to stop myself from trying to hold his hand at a few points, I'll admit. We ended up sitting on a bench in a nearby park, and I confessed. I told him I missed him more than anything, how I never stopped loving him, and how if he wanted to, I'd love to try again from the beginning this time. We'd go to couples therapy, keep our heads above the water, and take it slow. He was quiet for a minute before he told me something. He said he was doing better now, but there may be a time where he sunk low again. Depression isn't easily cured, and he was far from cured. He still had bad days, but he said there would be one difference: he promised he would never stop trying to improve. He was never going to give up like he did before, and refused to neglect me like he used to. If I was willing to accept that truth, he was willing to try again. I agreed, and he pulled me into an embrace and snuck a kiss to my temple. You know when it's the first warm day of spring after a cold, harsh winter, and the soft breeze and basking sun hit your skin at the same time? It felt something like that, to the 1000th degree. After a while he walked me back to my car and squeezed my hand goodbye, and the second I got inside I started sobbing like a baby. Happy tears, though. I'm currently sitting in bed, kicking my feet like a teenage girl, texting him back and forth to schedule an actual date. He said he'd plan everything, and try his best to make up for the birthdays and anniversaries he missed. He said it would knock my socks off. What a dork. I love being in love. Not gonna lie, this is gonna be a bit hard to explain to my friends and family. Not looking forward to those conversations, but right now I don't care. My man loves me. Thank you to everyone who had kind words to say, and all the people that messaged me with sympathy and advice. I hope we all find happiness, and love if we want it. I never would have made the leap if y'all hadn't encouraged me. Best of luck to all of you, and sorry for the overly flowery language. Love. Comments. Commenter 1. I knew a woman who divorced her husband for the same reasons. They'd had 3 kids, one whom was mentally ill. Married for 25 years. She was tired of covering up for him, dealing with his shit. He was losing clients, etc. So she kicked him to the curb. 3 years later, he'd gotten sober, counseling. They remarried. She loved the person, not the drunk. Commenter 2. Could the SSRI thing be a referral to how side effects are sometimes sexual performance related with antidepressants? I'd imagine it makes a man embarrassed, lol. But this is so cute, I started getting so happy for you. Reply, oh my god, that is what he meant, isn't it? Commenter 3. This reply made me laugh so loud. Your update made me smile so much. All the best to you both. Commenter 4. Girl, he's telling you his dick still works, get a clue. Reply, I never claimed to be a smart man. Back when he was still courting me, he said he thought I was handsome to my face, and I was just like, ah, thanks man. We didn't get together for another year. I don't even know how I got to this point, lol. Stories number 3. Aita for telling my sister's boyfriend it's not his business if I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. Am I the asshole for telling off my sister and her baby daddy's best friend when they both tired to get me to go on a date with him? So I, F22, am so tired of my sisters. My sister, F27, have a baby daddy who has a best friend. He's in the so-called rap game. But in reality has no money, no job, no nothing. I've been single for a year now and I'm kinda loving it. Plus I don't exactly have time for dates and all that. I work a full-time job then help my aunt out with her health issues. I currently live with her so that way we have eyes on my aunt to make sure she's taking care of herself. My sister have been saying I have nothing better to do than go on a date with him. He's not even my type. The last straw I had was when she told him without even asking me that I said yes to go on a date with him, so he was going to meet me at the restaurant and I never showed up and he got upset. They both came to me the next day while I was at work and started to go off and say how I'm selfish for not giving him a chance. And he's now saying I'm a hoe and how I think I'm better than him. So I went off on my sister and him, and I told my sister that I am done and that she had no right to try to force me to go on a date with a guy I had no interest in the first place. I then went off on him saying at least I have a job. You're a deadbeat baby daddy who does nothing for your own kids and who's in his late 30s wanting to go out with a 22-year-old woman. My manager came over and told them both to leave and to leave me alone. Now some of our mutual friends have taken her side and said I should have just gone on one date with him, and his baby mama texted me and told me she supports me and literally told me I made the right choice. So am I the asshole for telling off my sister for trying to set me up on a date with a man that I have no interest in dating anyways? Or did I take it too far? I have a type of guy I normally go for. I like guys who are athletic. Guys who are loyal and who won't hurt me in any way. And he's neither of those things. If my boyfriend isn't athletic it's not a big deal to me though. Aita has no consensus bot, OOP was NTA. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, NTA no judgment to your sister, but it sounds like you have goals and plans that don't match up to what your sister did, and I think that your sister wants to feel better about her choices by making sure that you follow in her footsteps. I think it's crazy that he tried to call you a hoe because you didn't want to go out with him, and I would encourage you not to settle. There's nothing wrong with wanting a partner who fits your lifestyle. Reply, I do have goals. I want to become a lawyer in New York and my sister can't accept that since most of my family has a criminal record. They don't want me to become successful putting bad PPL away. I also want to be married and have kids by 35 at the latest. Commenter 2, NTA. Whole thing should have been done the first time you said no. Everything after that was just escalating levels of disrespect. Original post. So I, F22, have an older sister, F28, she has 4 kids. And she loves being a mom and wants to be a stay-at-home mom. And I encourage her to do whatever she wants. She herself understands that I have no desire to be a mom right now, if not ever. I have 2 other older sisters who are like me who doesn't want to be a stay-at-home mother. This is important in the story. Her boyfriend is mad at me, M27, cause he asked me when I'm going to settle down and that he can introduce me to his friend, M25, who wants a stay-at-home wife. I told him no, that I don't want to date anyone this year, and he got mad at me for some reason and asked me why, so I told him my ex-boyfriend left me with trust issues. My ex cheated on me for 6 months into a 3-year relationship. He told me we broke up in 2023 and I should start getting back out there. And I told him it's not his business and he dropped it. But 2 days ago he asked me if I wanted to be a stay-at-home wife and mother. And I told him no, that I don't, and I'm not even sure if I want kids, let alone to be married. He got defensive since his mom was a stay-at-home wife and mom. And I told him I don't see anything wrong with being a stay-at-home mom, but that I don't personally want to depend on a man for anything, and he once again got defensive and said not all men are the same. I told him he was correct, but again not all women want the same thing. He said my sister wants to be a stay-at-home wife and mom, and I told him congratulations on finding that with my sister, but that I once again don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. He got mad cause he overheard my conversation about me getting an IUD as well and told me I'm ruining God's plan to make me a mom one day, and I told him whether I want kids or not is not his business. He got mad at me and told me to get out of his home, so I did. My older sister is asking me to apologize to him and to not get an IUD since if I get pregnant that it's God's plan. And she also told me I should reconsider being a stay-at-home mom wife. I told her not everyone has that dream. And she accused me of not respecting stay-at-home mothers' wives, which is nothing but lies. My 2 other older sisters are on my side and said my sister's boyfriend shouldn't be too concerned with how I live my life. And that if I don't want to depend on anyone for the rest of my life, that's my choice. He also said I'm going to hell for being bisexual, so I screamed that I guess his girlfriend, my sister, is also going to hell cause she's bisexual herself, which he already knows about. Now their friends are calling me an asshole, saying that he only cares about what I do with my body since it's God's body and I should respect it and become a mom soon. So am I the asshole for telling my sister's boyfriend it's not his business if I don't want to be a stay-at-home wife mom? TDL, my sister's boyfriend is upset I don't want to depend on a man and be a stay-at-home mom, and is also mad I'm thinking about getting a IUD in a few weeks, and that I shouldn't mess with my body since it's God's body not mine, so I told him to mind his business. Edit: to clarify, I did put this in some comments. But 3 out of her 4 kids aren't even his. My sister has a 7, 4, 3, and soon-to-be newborn. Edit 2, I get asked this question a lot. About why I was discussing getting an IUD to my sister's boyfriend. I wasn't discussing it to him. Me and my 3 sisters were all discussing it at his house, but he wasn't there. He walked in though when I said I was thinking of getting a IUD, and that's when he butted into the conversation, and as soon as he said God's body not my body, me and my 2 other sisters started talking to him about it and he raised his voice, so I raised mine and we eventually left since I don't like conflict at all. Ada has no consensus bot, OOP was NTA. Relevant comments. Did OOP ask her sister why she wanted OOP to be with a man? Reply, thank you. I asked her why she wants me to be with him. And she said she wants me to settle down and have kids. I'm only 22 and he's 38. And a deadbeat baby daddy. I personally don't want kids until I'm in my 30s. With a husband. Commenter 1, this guy sounds like a creep. Who is he to dictate what you do with your life, your career, and your body? I hope your sister knows about this and supports you. NTA. Reply, my sister who is with him wholeheartedly supports him and that I should be a stay-at-home. She wants me to apologize to keep the damn peace, but I told her I'm done keeping the peace. He also supports the abortion ban, which is his opinion. Me on the other hand is pro-choice. He wants a national abortion ban even for rape and incest. Which makes me nervous to be in a room with him. She also supports this. OOP clarifies on the relationship of her sister's children and the current boyfriend. Reply, 3 out of 4 kids aren't even his. One of her baby daddies was and still is never in the picture, and the other one is an amazing father. They, editor's note, sister and current BF, got together last year. And he's been giving me the creeps since then. We even tried to talk some sense into my sister about him, but she doesn't see it, so we just let her do her own thing. She has 3 baby daddies, 4 kids. None of them are dead. One of her baby daddies isn't and never was in the picture, and that's her oldest and her second youngest kid's dad. Her middle child's father is and will forever be in the picture. I'm very close to my middle nephew's dad. He is like a big brother to me. Me and my sister's boyfriend were and never will be close, especially after what happened. Is there a reason why the BF is targeting OOP to do this? Reply, my sisters think it's because I'm the youngest out of all 4 of us. All 3 of my older sisters are a year and a half apart from one another. Then me and my 3rd oldest sister is 4 years apart. But just because I'm the youngest doesn't make me naive. I have very strong views of what I want my life to be like. Does OOP live with her sister and the BF? Can she move away? Reply, no, I currently live with my other sister and her daughter. But we all live near each other. Right now though I've decided to live with my aunt 30 minutes away from him. OOP clarifies on if her other sisters have their own families. Reply, they all have kids. I'm the only one who doesn't. The 28-year-old sister is a SOM. The 27-year-old sister has a job and a relationship. Her boyfriend is the SAHD. The 26-year-old sister is a single mother, she's the one I live with. Did OOP's sister work before she got together with her BF? Reply, she worked restaurants and gas stations. She's a high school dropout. Which again, I have no problems with that either. Update 1, I already knew I was going to go no contact with her boyfriend, as I don't feel safe around him. But I went ahead and called my sister to tell her and why I chose no contact with. And she is now super mad at me saying I overreacted and all that fun stuff. So I asked her if they were going to apologize, and she said they don't owe me an apology and I owe him an apology. He overheard us on the phone and once again got into the conversation, and I told him I have nothing to say to him. He told me he wanted to know an answer to 2 of his questions. Why I don't want to be a STHM. Told him it's none of this business and to stay in his lane. Why I don't want to marry his friend. Told him that he isn't my type and never will be. And to not talk to me again. He told me if I don't stop overreacting I won't have anything to do with my nephews and niece. And that NGL got to me. And I told him for my mental health I'm done being talking to him. And my sister said okay, you made your choice and we will make ours. So now I'm no contact with both of them. Also found out my dad found out yesterday, and this morning after I was on phone with them he went and yelled at Josh and told him to back off. And that his daughter wasn't for sale or anything like that. And they got into a fist fight. And apparently my dad won. I'm not totally sure about that though, and my dad called me and apologized and asked me personally why I don't want to be a stay-at-home mother, so I told him the reason, which had to do with my dad, stepmom, and he apologized to me saying that he never meant to do that to her. He was very abusive to her. At one point I saw him choke her and screamed and he let her go but never apologized for it. So I decided to cut off my sister and her boyfriend, which sucked cause I won't able to see my niece and nephews anymore, but my mental health and physical health is more important to me tbh. Additional information from OOP regarding her sister and the BF. There is one more thing that was said that I forgot to mention. So in my last post about this, there were so many PPL telling me to ask him when he's going to marry my sister since they are not living in God's plan. So I asked him. His response was, "It's not my business to know," to which I said then it's not his business to know anything about what I do with my body and who I date and all that. He got angry with me and proceeded to cuss me out. I honestly just laughed. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, your sister is with a man that is able to get into a fist fight with her father, OOP's father? Reply, yes apparently. NGL though, he wasn't always a great father. He was abusive to all of us. Especially my older brother who is 30 years old, but he's changed and got help for his angry and all that. But he's always an amazing grandpa, but I'm sure after what with my sister's boyfriend they will cut him off too. We all never liked her boyfriend, my dad especially. Commenter 2, your father hasn't changed though, he just beat up his own son-in-law. Granted, his son-in-law deserved it, but your sister is in an abusive relationship and is too stupid to see it, most likely due to what she was subjected to by your father when she was growing up. Reply, probably. I just like to see the best of my dad. So that's probably why in my mind I think he's changed. I was in an abusive relationship until September of 2023 when I decided to end it cause he put in the hospital for almost a week. I think my dad saw him in my sister's boyfriend and that's why he kept telling her he wasn't a good partner to have. Did OOP see her father assault her stepmother? Reply, yeah. I was 10 years old when it happened. It was my stepmom, she was a stay-at-home mom and they both heard me scream and he let her go and my aunt called 911 and he was arrested but she didn't want to file charges so he was let go. They haven't been together since but she raised me most of my life. OOP expands on how her dad has changed and how this has affected him of her sister's relationship with the BF and OOP's past relationship. Reply, I'm grateful for my dad, he's changed a lot over the years because all his kids, he has 6 kids, from 30 to 19, and we all told him either get help or no contact and he chose to get help. He's not perfect though, but nobody is. And I was in an abusive relationship from 17 to 21 and it took me 6 times to leave before I finally left and I promised myself that in the future I'll never put myself through that or be around PPL like that. She knows deep in her heart if she really wants to leave, I'll do my best to help her through it but I can't stay around her if I don't feel safe around both of them. Has OOP got therapy to deal with the possible unresolved issues she has? Reply, NGL no. In my family we don't exactly open up at all. We just hold it in until we explode. I'm making an appointment next week. I need to get better mentally and emotionally before dating again. Which I don't exactly plan to do for a couple more years, but thank you for the advice, I appreciate it a lot. Update 2. Hello everyone, sorry I didn't give an update sooner, I had a lot going on. My 2 other older sisters sat down with our sister and they all 3 talked about why I wanted nothing to do with her and her boyfriend anymore. She did admit she might have lost herself when she got with her boyfriend, and she wants to apologize to me but she also wants me to apologize to him as well. My sisters told her I don't owe him an apology or an explanation. She got mad and said she wants nothing to do with me if I can't be the bigger person like she is and apologize. I told her that's fine. As y'all voted for Trump and trying to take away gay marriage, I'm bisexual. My 2 other sisters suggested family therapy. And I told them no. I haven't seen my sister and her boyfriend in a month and I'm currently living full-time with my aunt helping her with her medical stuff. I don't exactly have time nor the energy to even go to family therapy if I wanted to. I did end up in the hospital recently cause of a car accident. My best friend was driving at night and most killed a deer. Luckily we crashed into a tree and only had a broken leg. I can't walk until it's healed. My 2 other sisters found out and lectured us though. None of us was drunk. We just went to IHOP for some breakfast for dinner and on the way back from IHOP it's when we got into the car accident. But other than that, nothing really happened with my sister and her boyfriend. I finally cut off contact a month ago for good. It sucks cause of my niece and nephews but I need to protect myself from PPL like them. I decided to make them all a Gmail and email them all every day since I cut off contact and when they are all 18 I've decided to give them their email so they can read those emails. I love them but I need to love myself more. It honestly sounds selfish. But I've gone to my own therapy sessions and my therapist is helping me cope with losing them. I've fully accepted that I never want to be a mother. It's hard, but I don't think that mother life is for me. My two other sisters are upset cause they really wanted me to have kids, but they also accepted my choice to not have kids. But like I said, nothing really happened since I cut off contact with my sister and her boyfriend. I did delete my Facebook and Instagram and Messenger accounts cause it wasn't good for my mental health and my sister could easily get a hold of me that way. But honestly, I'm just living life and also living one day at a time lately. But that's it. I hope you all good luck in life and thank you for all the advice, I really appreciate it. Edit, my sister did give birth to another boy. She wanted me at the hospital but I said no. It was a hard decision but I think I made the right choice for my mental health. My mental health isn't in a good place but it's better than it was 2 months ago. Also I'm thinking about saving money and moving to a small town in a different state and start completely over. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, she only wanted you there so she could say, see, babies are a miracle and a blessing. Now you go make some now. And then you can be a stay-at-home mom too. It would just be never-ending bullshit if you kept them in your life. OP. You definitely made the right choice when you cut them off. Reply, yeah, that's never going to happen. I love being an aunt, I don't think I can handle being a mother at all. NGL. Commenter 2, NTA, you're prioritizing your mental health and well-being, which is important. You've set boundaries with your sister, and it's okay to cut off toxic relationships. Focusing on yourself is not selfish, it's necessary. You're allowed to live life on your own terms. Reply, thank you. I finally realized my sister isn't going to apologize if I apologize to her boyfriend and I refuse to apologize when I did nothing wrong. So I finally decided I love my niece and nephews but my mental health is declining and I needed to get away from that toxic environment. Commenter 3, sounds like you're doing exactly what you need to do for your own peace, and that's never selfish. Cutting off toxic people is hard, but choosing yourself is always the right move. The Gmail thing for your niece and nephews is actually so sweet, future them is gonna be so grateful. Wishing you a speedy recovery on that leg, and honestly, breakfast for dinner was worth it. Keep living your best life. Commenter 4, cutting off toxic people is like cluttering your closet, sometimes you just gotta toss out the stuff that doesn't spark joy. And honestly, if future nieces and nephews don't appreciate that Gmail account, I'm ready to step in as their cool uncle aunt and explain the concept of gratitude. Wishing you a speedy recovery on that leg. Remember, breakfast for dinner is not just a meal, it's a lifestyle choice. Keep rocking that best life of yours, who knows, maybe you'll start a trend where pancakes are considered gourmet. Stories number 4. My daughter's principal made her cry and banned my wife from campus for asking for an apology. My daughter, 13, asked her art teacher if she could be her assistant during summer school. Her teacher thought it would be great, but told her it would be up to the principal. My daughter wrote out an email and had her teacher proofread it and got the okay to send it off. She came home really excited about it and read my wife and I the email. We were both impressed by how professional and courteous she had been. Later that night the principal emailed her back after 10 p.m. In the email she said that my daughter was inconsiderate and presumptuous, crossing the line of disrespect because she emailed her as though they were friends and not as though she was a student addressing her superior. She said she would not consider her request and instead would require a second email to apologize to her for the disrespect. My wife and I were absolutely floored. Our daughter came to our room in tears because she thought the email was going to be good news and instead was raked over the coals. The email that our daughter sent was incredibly respectful and had been proofread by a teacher. As angry as what my wife and I were, we decided to keep our calm and try to be reasonable. While I was at work, my wife went to the school to talk with the principal. She called me immediately afterwards in a fit because she had been thrown out of the school. The principal then sent an email to my wife with the account of events, saying it was also being sent to the school attorney. The account was filled to the brim with lies. She said my wife burst into her office and was yelling at her and clapping her hands in her face and wouldn't let he get any words in as she yelled over her. My wife is a very meek and respectful person. She did get angry and by the end of the conversation said that she did raise her voice, but only after the principal had. The larger issue in all of this is that it is a charter school that is not under the Board of Education and the principal is also the superintendent. My wife and I simply wanted an explanation of why that time of night and why that level of harshness to a student who was only trying to reach out to do more. Now we are in an uncomfortable situation we have no interest in being in. How should we proceed? Stories number 5. I, 37M, want to try and get back with the one who got away, 36F. Is there any chance of that happening? I've been tearing myself apart just thinking about her and how things ended. I can't stop no matter how much I try. This is going to be a long post, and I know I'm writing a lot of rambling and nonsense. When I, 37M, was 20, I met the most beautiful woman, Lila, who was 19 at the time. She was both inside and out. She had the most gorgeous dark brown hair that looked red and purple when the light hit it just right, these golden brown eyes and lashes that looked like a doll's, freckles on her rosy plump cheeks, and a single dimple when she smiled a certain way. She was a year younger than me, but yet she was always so much smarter and mature in every aspect. We dated for 2 years. I met her parents, and her no-nonsense cop father definitely gave me the stank eye at first, but he grew to like me. Her mom adored me right off the bat, always commenting on how my green eyes complemented her daughter's golden brown eyes in the most romantic way. I still don't fully understand what that means, but I liked the compliment. Her younger siblings loved playing in the backyard with me. She met my parents and my 2 brothers, and they all loved her right off the bat. My younger brother was the same age as her, and they were going to college together and would help each other study in some of the shared classes their majors had. Hell, even my 6-month-old dog I had adopted before even meeting her seemed to like her more than he liked me. She told me her dreams, how she wanted to own a home that was tucked away from everything but not completely isolated. How she wanted to be a doctor, and that she wanted to help people. She wanted to be a pediatrician, she loved kids. She always said she wanted a family. She didn't care how many kids she had, she just wanted to experience the ups and downs of motherhood. She wanted the good, the bad, the ugly. I listened to her go on and on about baby names and how she would design a nursery. At the time, I thought I wanted kids too. I wanted to marry this girl and give her the family she so clearly wanted. She was my Lila, I wanted to stay with her forever. I was young, but I was in love with her. After 2 years of dating I started to realize that I didn't want to have kids. I thought I was just being around too many of my bratty cousins and that was turning me off from the idea. But the more I thought about it, the more the idea of having to be a father made me sick. I would get headaches and my stomach would twist in knots thinking about having to take care of some screaming, crying and shitting little thing, and then have it grow into a tantrum-throwing toddler, a bratty child, and then some moody teenager. I didn't want to be held down like that. I wanted to travel, have money, be free. After a few drinks one night, I ended up telling all of this to Lila. I remember she went quiet and simply said, "I won't try and change your mind, but I'm not giving up my dreams." I remember scoffing and rolling my eyes, telling her that we weren't going to have kids. She stood up from the couch, and said, "You might not want that anymore, but I still do. I'm not going to try and force either one of our minds to change, then one of us will end up miserable." I realized she was breaking up with me, and even though she was so calm and mature about it, I remember feeling so angry. She was walking around the apartment gathering her things and being completely silent. I kept arguing with her, trying to change her mind. I kept telling her that it was stupid to want kids, that they were annoying and a waste of time. When she still didn't budge, I started to insult her. I said she was stupid, that she was a weak woman for wanting to be a mom, that she should just give up on being a doctor so she could push out her brats. Lila finally started to respond to me, telling me to calm down, that we simply wanted different things in life and that was okay. I hated her in that moment, that she wasn't agreeing with me. I remember punching the wall of our apartment, kicking a door, throwing anything I could get my hands on. She watched me wreck our living room and kitchen, not saying a word. She walked past me and left. This whole thing happened over a few hours. In less than a day I lost the love of my life, and my apartment was now trashed. Of course, news of why we broke up and my reaction to it reached my family. My mom cried hearing how I reacted. My dad gave me the coldest look I'd ever seen. My brothers both said I was an idiot, with my younger brother saying I was lucky Lila hadn't called the cops on me during that. That was 15 years ago. I've tried to have relationships since, but they never lasted more than a few weeks. I travel around for work, but now I'm back in the same town Lila lives in. Lila got married, got her doctorate, had kids, and is still a pediatrician last I heard. I know my younger brother still kept some contact with her in the first few years after the breakup. He even invited her to his wedding, but she declined because she didn't want to cause drama. I'm back in her town, the town we both grew up in, dated in, lived in, and where she currently lives. I can't stop thinking about her. I miss her so much right now. I miss her sweet perfume that smelled like a bakery, her strawberry shampoo, the way her hair looks in the light. She's 36 now, and I want to reach out to her and make amends with her. I want to hold and hug her one last time, to tell her I love her and I'm sorry. I don't know if that's a good idea, but a part of me needs closure. I don't know what to do. I want to sweep her off her feet and have her be my love again, but I don't know if that ship has sailed already. Update: I have a date with my ex tomorrow and I'm nervous. I recently reached out to an ex-girlfriend of mine to see about meeting up and catching up on life. I didn't expect her to respond to me, as we ended on bad terms. She responded, we ended up messaging for a while and did some catching up. I finally asked her if she'd be willing to see me in person, and said she'd be willing to meet up with me. I'm over the moon, but I'm also nervous about going on a date with her. She's 36 and I'm 37, and our last time being on dates with one another was close to 15 years ago. Our date is tomorrow evening after she gets off work. I'm scared I'll mess things up again. I already feel like she's being too generous with me by even agreeing to speak to me again, let alone see me in person, but I'll take any chance I can to try and make things right with her. I can't shake this horrible feeling in the back of my throat that I'll mess something up, that I'll just end up more heartbroken than before. That I'll come on too strong and she won't want to see me ever again. I've bought her favorite flowers for her. I've already made sure to start re-wearing her favorite cologne of mine from all those years ago. I've been practicing what I need and what I want to say to her. I have no idea how this date's going to go, but I just need to type out these feelings of nervousness I have. Update: following my last post, I reached out to Lila. I had to. I know a lot of people wanted me to never contact her again, despite how I wanted to make amends with her. So I reached out to her, and she responded and we chatted back and forth a bit. After a bit of this, I asked her if she wanted to meet up, and basically let her set all the ground rules. She agreed, and 3 days ago we went out on a date. She is just as beautiful as she was when we were together. Her figure filled out, and she finally lost the baby fat on her face, but she was still the same woman I fell in love with all those years ago. We sat down and talked. I didn't want to talk much about myself, but she asked about my life so I had to. She asked about my job, my family, how I'd been. Typical catching up stuff. I'll admit I was zoned out for most of this, and I was operating on autopilot to keep my nerves from taking over. I just wanted to grab her and hold her, kiss her, make her mine against. I don't think I realized just how much I missed her until she was right in front of me. Finally, when she was done asking about me, I finally got to ask about her and how she's been. She got married 11 years ago, so 4 years after our breakup. She has 2 daughters, an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. I saw how happy she was when she talked about them, and I couldn't help but feel jealous and guilty. I should have been the one to have children with her, but I was stupid and now she had kids with someone that wasn't me. I asked about her husband, and turns out she's a widow. He died 7 years ago while she was pregnant with her youngest. It was unexpected, according to her, but that she's done her best to move on and hold herself together and appear unaffected by it all for her daughters. I asked her if she was seeing anyone, and she said no. I asked her if she ever thought about me after our breakup, and she got vague with her answers. I told her she could tell me blunt what she was thinking. Lila said that she was very depressed after our breakup. She had built a future of us in her head, and she felt like I broke it on a whim with no warning. She said she lost her first real relationship and all the dreams she had with me when we broke up. She admitted that she had been so attached and in love with me that for a while she almost tried to convince herself that she didn't want kids, but no matter what she did she couldn't stop herself from wanting to be a mom, and she knew that if she gave that up voluntarily she would be miserable for the rest of her life. I asked her if I scared her that night, if she felt threatened by me at all. She said the yelling overwhelmed her, and while the commotion frightened her, she wouldn't say she feared for her safety or life, so that gave me hope. I apologized to her about how we broke up, and told her I had regretted everything I did and said that night. She said she had moved on and forgiven me years ago. She always was a very forgiving and kind person, part of the reason I fell in love with her in the first place. I asked her if she was willing to give me another chance and let me back in her life. She was hesitant, and got quiet for a moment. I could feel myself panicking when that happened. She said that she didn't mind me being in her life, but that I'd have to regain her trust in order for her to consider even trying to date me. I was disappointed, frustrated, and very disheartened, but I knew if I came on too strong she'd turn me away completely. I told her I'd be happy to be in her life any way that I can, and that with her permission I'd be working to prove I deserved a second chance at romance. I'm happy to have Lila back in my life, and I'm going to work on proving to her that we should get back together. I hope that we can have the family and life she always talked to me about. I know there's still time but the clock is ticking on it. I'm hoping that one day I'll be posting for advice on the family we'll have together, if all things go well. Update 3. Unsure how to proceed in my relationship. Should I ask her to be my official girlfriend? So me, 37M, and this woman, 36F, have been seeing each other for a bit under a month now. It's been casual meet-ups and dates, no sex as she wants to wait. We used to date in the past, broke up, but now we're seeing each other again. Is it too early to ask her to be my official girlfriend again? I feel like we're acting like a couple without the label, which is frustrating. I've met her kids, and given them a handful of kids to and from school. I've spent the night at her house once. I bring her flowers to her work and to every date we have. I feel like we're a couple, so is it appropriate to ask her to be my official girlfriend? Update 4. My girlfriend is pregnant. She's happy about it, I'm not. It was just casual dating for a few months, and we've only been intimate a few times. She isn't on any birth control, and she made it clear she wasn't going to get on any, so if I wanted to be intimate with her it was going to be on my end. I was stupid and didn't use protection, and now she's pregnant. She's only about 4 weeks, caught it during her routine blood work at the doctor's office. She's surprisingly optimistic about this, I am not. She's already thinking ahead and planning about putting parts of her paycheck aside to prepare for the baby, and has already started to eat a bit healthier. I don't think I want this. She has 2 kids from a previous relationship that I like enough, but I don't think I can deal with a baby and toddler stage. She keeps telling me that it'll all be okay, that everything happens for a reason and the universe had a plan for this, but I'm getting real tired of that hippie bullshit. I just wish I could go back in time and stop this whole thing from happening. How do I talk with her about this? She's already so happy and attached to this thing, but I just feel panic whenever I think about this thing being born. I need advice quickly. Stories number 6. Aita for walking out of my girlfriend's birthday dinner after what she did. So my 28M girlfriend, Sarah, 26F, just had her birthday dinner at a nice restaurant with about 12 of our friends. I spent weeks planning it, made the reservation, coordinated with her friends, even got the staff to bring out a surprise cake at the end. Dinner was going well until Sarah stood up, tapped her glass, and said she had an important announcement. Then, with the biggest smile, she goes, "I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight, and a special thank you to my wonderful boyfriend, who has been so amazing. So amazing, in fact, that I'm happy to say I finally see him as a true best friend, and nothing more." The table went silent. I thought it was some weird joke, but then she kept talking about how she had been thinking for a while and realized she loved me, but not in that way. In front of everyone, I felt like an idiot. I just sat there, stunned, while some of her friends awkwardly tried to change the subject. Eventually, I just grabbed my coat and left. I didn't cause a scene, I didn't say anything, I just walked out. Sarah started throwing texts up my phone, calling me dramatic and saying I embarrassed her on her birthday. She said she thought we were mature enough to handle this like adults and that I should have stayed. But I just couldn't sit there and pretend everything was fine after that public humiliation. Stories number 7. Aita for giving my SIL a reality check about her actions after she got upset over an altercation from 12 years ago. My 31F sister-in-law, 34F, has been a thorn in my side for almost 2 decades. When I first met her in my middle school years, I idolized her for being older and cooler, except when I met her, she wasn't dating my brother, 33M, she was dating his best friend. My brother and I have always been extremely close and share a friend group, so I was often with some of his friends and D also starting coming around frequently. Not too long later, D had caused some chaos between the friend group, cheating on her boyfriend with my brother, cheated on my brother with the best friend, and slowly making her way around the rest of his friends, spare one. As you can probably guess, my adoration for her quickly dissipated. Her true colors continued to show more and more. D has no filter and says very rude and inappropriate things to myself, my family, and our friends constantly. Most friends actually distanced themselves from my brother because of her. She became more insufferable as time went on. This caused my brother to get kicked out of a house he was renting with his friends. They ended up getting an apartment together, and by they, I just mean my brother. D didn't work, doesn't drive or know how, and just went to school. My brother had to rearrange his work schedule to drive her to and from classes, pay for the apartment and everything that comes with it, and had to cook and clean because with school she was too busy. It was hard to watch and even harder to be around. She had rules like not being able to get a glass of water if we came over because we didn't pay rent there, and would scold my brother if he did so anyways. She would also make very rude and snide remarks anytime she was around anyone, saying things to me specifically like, "You probably shouldn't have kids or you might pass down a lazy eye, my eyes are perfectly fine by the way," or, "I think your mom could have abused you more to be honest." She also told my baby cousin who was struggling with an eating disorder that she should quit after high school so she doesn't lose her prime years of being skinny. Needless to say, I was less than a fan. Not too long later, I get a call from my brother who is beside himself because he walked in on her cheating on him. I was relieved to be honest, but I listened and reassured him that he didn't deserve any of it. He was heartbroken for months, but in that time, we got closer than we were and his friends started coming around again. Months later, they reconnect and I'm close enough with my brother to let him know that I don't condone cheating or the hurt she put him through and I don't think it's a very smart idea. I told him I'll support him no matter what but I don't want to be around her. I remind him that it's not the first time she's done it either, seeing as how that's how they got together in the first place. He reassures me he will be fine. Weeks go by and my parents are out of town. I lived with my dad and stepmom at the time, and my brother asked if he could come stay at my dad's while they were gone to get some peace from his roommates. I agreed, but didn't realize he would bring D. I immediately, and immaturely, confronted her and yelled at her to get off my property and that she would not be staying there. Things escalated physically and they ended up leaving. Fast forward to now. I now live out of state, and come home for holidays. This was my first Christmas home with my fiancé, and though he's been home with me before, it was special to me because Christmas is my favorite time of the year and it has nothing to do with gifts but everything to do with my very big, very loving family. Every year we go to my dad's for Christmas Eve and open presents with our immediate family and then head out to our cousins to eat and drink and play games and spend time together. This year, I was kid-free. My kiddos were with their dad, my ex-husband, this year. Even without kids, it's a lot to plan and execute a trip because I normally only get to stay for 24 to 48 hours after you factor in travel time and my work schedule. I forgot my niece's presents back home. I asked my brother if he could resend me her list so I could run to Target and buy her gifts to open and I'd mail the rest. They ended up having the exact same gifts, besides one, so I got everything, wrapped them up and headed to my dad's. I was greeted by my younger brother, 25M, my dad and stepmom, and my older brother and niece showed up right after me. Dee was nowhere to be found, and my brother explained her parents were in town and staying at their house so she stayed behind to entertain them. My family is very welcoming and would T have minded having them, but her family is not. At my brother and Asael wedding, her family set up 2 tables to split the families and then had my brother and Dee sit with her family in the seats that made their backs face my family. They did not speak to us the entire reception. We opened gifts, and my niece was glued to me which was great because I don't see her often and I was missing my kids. We enjoy the rest of the night and the rest of our trip. 6 days later I receive a text from my older brother stating that I was the reason Dee didn't come to Christmas. That I offended her and they no longer wanted to be around my children or have me around theirs. I was very confused because I honestly don't care to talk to Dee, let alone converse about her. He explained that my little brother's girlfriend Lara, who I'm very close with, brought up the story of our altercation and Dee was embarrassed and upset. I called Lara and she explained that Dee was actually talking negatively about me to Lara. Lara just agreed that she knew we weren't very friendly and explained she knew about that altercation, but she did clarify that my little brother was the one who told her. I called my brother and explained that I was not the one who brought this up to Lara. I also didn't appreciate that Dee was speaking negatively about me and is now upset because she didn't like something said about her, but the difference was that she was talking about me in the present and our situation happens in the past. It's something my brother and I have already hashed out years ago. I told him I didn't understand why Dee couldn't just talk to me herself. We are grown adults, we have each other's contact numbers, and have been pretty cordial for years now. I let him know I would apologize, but I wasn't going to do that through a middleman. A week went by and Dee never contacted me. I did send her a text stating that I'd love to talk things out but would prefer not to do it over text because it's very impersonal. I told her if she wanted to wait until I was back in town at the end of the month, she could, or she could call me. I got no response. Now it's February and I get a call from another family member who had recently flown to our home state to visit. She informed me that Dee and my brother could do nothing but talk about me, my family, my children, and how horrible I was. My family is not very fond of her and shut it down immediately. At this point I reached out again, reiterating that I think this is a personal matter between her and I'd appreciate it if she would talk to me instead of everyone else. I get a response 2 days later with paragraphs upon paragraphs. The first stated how she will not bite her tongue at the disrespect and that she knows I was just hoping she would get over it because I haven't reached out to her. The second paragraph tells me how immature I am and how tough I must feel. That even back then, I wasn't protecting my brother from her and that I created the cheating narrative in my head and must be projecting, otherwise how did my marriage fail? He was abusive, that's how. She said after finding out that I'm pregnant with a daughter, she hopes for her sake I don't go through with it because I'll end up abusive like my mother. Which again, I have 3 perfectly healthy happy children that I've raised pretty much on my own. And finally that I'm a pathological liar because I never sent my niece's Christmas presents, which again, if you missed it, she opened the same exact ones Christmas Eve. Which she would have known had she been there. And I hadn't sent the other one that the store didn't have because I had received the text from my brother cutting me off from my niece. But also that I'm trying to manipulate her through her daughter because I bought the most expensive gifts in her Christmas list registry. Which I do because they have one child and have to buy for my three, so it only seems fair to spend a decent amount. At that point, my gloves were off. I did tell her I will not be responding to half of those comments. I told her that the word immature is being thrown around so ironically since she is in her mid-30s and can't have a conversation with me about something that's upsetting her from 12 years ago. I let her know that I respect how supportive my brother is of his wife, but I do not care for her and only apologized out of my love for him. I also let her know that it will be a blessing if she uses me as an excuse not to come to family functions anymore, because it won't bother me either way. I'll always be welcomed because of my family. And lastly, I listed all the friends and family that she has pissed off and why, and assured her 99% of them would agree that out of the two of us, I'm not the problem. Stories number 8. Aita 4. Gossiping with my mum about my brother's fiancé is potentially lying about giving birth. I, 22F, have an older brother, John, 32M, who has been with his fiancée, Jane, 30F, for 4 years. They have a 4-month-old. Jane found out she was pregnant at 5.5 weeks and immediately called my mum to tell her. Mum was confused, but still very excited. Jane said she was going to tell John when he got back from his work trip. A few hours later, she called again, sobbing, saying she has insatiable cravings. Mum made a joke like, "Isn't it a bit early for cravings?" and Jane went off on her. She started yelling about how this was her pregnancy and no one else's. It was an odd reaction. She also apologized for her outburst by blaming it on hormones. When my brother returned from his trip, him and Jane left to stay at her mother's and we didn't see her until after the baby was born. John said this was because Jane was afraid of losing the pregnancy and wanted to be with her mum and we needed to respect boundaries. Whenever someone would ask about Jane or the baby, they would shut it down with vague answers like every pregnancy is different or she's carrying small, which isn't unusual. They barely shared anything about the pregnancy. No ultrasound pictures, no baby shower, and Jane didn't want anyone around during the delivery. I also discovered that every craving she listed came from one article about pregnancy cravings. She even listed multiple items in the same order as the article. When the baby was born, we were finally allowed to see Jane and John, and baby of course. It was very bittersweet as we all wished we could have been there for Jane to help out, but Jane and John both reassured us that we did help out by staying away during the pregnancy. The weirdest part though, is how Jane describes the birth. She claims she had an epidural via 4 drip into her hand, edited BC. I didn't elaborate, which is not how those are administered. When I asked clarifying questions, thinking she had gotten confused, which is understandable, she shut down and refused to answer, like how she would during the pregnancy. She said the baby had latching issues because he was born with no umbilical cord stump. This can technically happen, but it's a rare and fatal medical condition that their baby does not have. The final straw was when she told us that the baby basically fell out of her within an hour of being in labor, despite my brother telling us how hard the birth was, and even stating that was why they weren't going to try for any more kids. Mum is on the same side as me, and has been noting this inconsistencies and inaccuracies but doesn't know how to bring it up. And their reactions don't help. A few days ago, my brother texted Mum saying her doubt of Jane is disrespectful and they both want full apologies from the both of us for bullying Jane about her pregnancy labor. I haven't made any outright accusations about it, nor have I said any of this to Jane. I've only asked questions when she brings the birth pregnancy up. Aita for having doubts. Sum of comments. Commenter, by all means keep in mind that she may not be a reliable narrator, particularly if it comes to medical matters, but other than that, just enjoy your nibbling. This is not a situation where you need to prove her wrong or set her right, and YTA if you continue to gossip. Also, why jump to lying, which implies ill intent? OOP. Also, why jump to lying, which implies ill intent? Because their stories change. One day the labor was a grueling, touch and go 24 hours and the next day it was, he just slipped out, I didn't even feel it. The labor was an hour or 2 max. One day it's, I had an epidural given via 4 drip in my hand, and the next it's, it was so quick and easy, I didn't need any pain meds. One day it's, he was born without an umbilical cord stump so he doesn't latch easily, and the next it's, he was born 100% healthy. Everything about it changes on a day-to-day basis while my brother and SIL try to insist there's nothing weird going on and anyone who merely questions these changes is a gossip bully. I'm trying to be nice here and not imply ill intent, but when they jump down your throat for asking how much the baby weighed, it's hard not to. Commenter, YTA. Sounds like they adopted a baby but are too scared to tell you, but not afraid to tell her side of the family, because you might judge them. Welcome the baby and stop being nosy. It's really none of your business. Reply, I mean I was adopted and John is a surrogate baby so I'm unsure about that part. Commenter, maybe at this point they are fucking with you. Reply, I hope so. I hope they're really good actors. Commenter, YTA I doubt you and your mum are reliable narrators. Especially considering you googled her cravings. I've had 3 children, no baby showers, and carried low with my first. You couldn't tell I was pregnant. Reply, especially considering you googled her cravings. Yeah, haha, Sale told me to. She kept saying her cravings were common and to look it up as proof. Then I found said article and realized she was listing every craving off the list. Commenter, info, why does it matter? Why not just ask if they adopted or used a surrogate if you want to know so badly? Reply, why not just ask if they adopted or used a surrogate if you want to know so badly? I said I would love to adopt one day, I'm adopted also, but that surrogacy is also on the table. They both started crying. When family asked if they were okay, my brother told my uncle to shut up and they left. So ick. Commenter, I feel like in any situation it's totally reasonable to fact check. Just a question of what you do with the information. Reply, but also. They told me their newborn had this birth defect and didn't elaborate. So I googled it because I had never heard of it. Then I find out it has a 100% death rate. So now I'm assuming this newborn baby is going to die soon because all babies born with body stock anomaly live for a few days max. When I bring it up with them, they tell me that actually no, he's not going to die and he doesn't really have body stock anomaly. So I went from prematurely grieving this newborn's death and panicking that he was going to pass to being told that he's actually fine. So like how am I supposed to react to news about the baby now? More on body stock anomaly. Body stock anomaly is a very different thing and it means it's a defect in which the abdominal organs develop outside of a baby's abdominal cavity and remain attached directly to the placenta. Yes. That is what they said the baby had. The baby very clearly does not have BSA. But that's what they said, and continue to say, the baby has. The baby cannot have an infection on an umbilical cord stump that is no longer there, because it fell off like it's supposed to. They both said the baby's stump was not infected. I know the baby doesn't have BSA. SIL and brother, however, continue to say baby has it, which is not true at all. That is why I was pushing back on them about it because it makes no sense. They still maintain the baby had no infection and is in good health but simultaneously has BSA. This is why I'm so confused by what they're saying. Top comment on post. Ambitious Border 906. The reality is that nothing much adds up, but there is one reality you can buy into. Your brother and his fiancée have a baby that is theirs. You can remain out of their lives forever or let your obsession go and enjoy your niece-nephew. Your choice, but you would be an AH if you chose option 1. Update post. Well, I was right to have questions. After I made my post I stopped talking to my mum about the pregnancy but things still didn't add up. Fast forward to my brother's birthday and the whole family was over at mum's. Our aunts, uncles, cousins and older brother were all guests. During the party, Jane mentioned how the baby had BSA and our aunt called her out on it. She's a maternity nurse. It caused a huge argument where Jane and John left in a rage, but it turns out that Jane didn't give birth. The baby is actually a product of my brother's affair. He had been cheating on Jane with some woman for about 6 months before she got pregnant. Apparently, Jane and John offered her a lump sum of £25,000 for her to allow them to adopt the baby when it was born and to never interact with the baby or their family ever again. They didn't want this cheating to be found out so they pretended Jane was pregnant and moved away. Jane's mum was in on the whole thing. The kicker. This all came out because the woman John had the affair with decided she wanted her baby back. Apparently, she hadn't been fully informed about the agreement's legal implications, and she felt pressured to sign it in the first place. She also barely speaks English and the contract was all English. She's now pursuing legal action against Jane and John to get full custody of the baby. She said she waited this long because she was afraid of her immigrant status getting in the way. All their closed-off answers and refusal to engage was because they were afraid of this coming out. Apparently, Jane was terrified of someone noticing the baby's eyes, green. John and Jane both have blue eyes but Lucy has green eyes. Things have gone to absolute shit. The whole situation is bigger than anything I could have imagined. I won't be updating unless something else crazy happens. If this was a sign to keep trusting my gut, but damn, I'll be logging off in a few hours. Thanks to everyone, smiley face. Sum of comments. Commenter, you need to get Usil out of that toxic relationship ASAP. Help that girl wake up. Reply, I mean they both orchestrated taking advantage of the woman they're made for each other. Commenter, why didn't they just say they will adopt a baby? Reply, well that's what they did under the guise of tricking the woman. I don't know what the contract said exactly, but from what I know, my brother told her she'd be able to see the baby, but the contract said that by taking the £25,000 she'd never see her baby or my brother his extended family ever again. I feel awful for her and I hope she can recover and get her baby back. Commenter, yikes. I hope that poor woman gets her baby back. In the US at least, there's a visa for people who report a crime and cooperate with prosecuting the perpetrator. It's frequently used for domestic violence. We don't know the details and whether they can be charged with a crime given the contract. Maybe something like criminal coercion. In any case, I hope mama and baby are reunited and thrive together. Sorry you have to deal with the family mess. OP. Reply, we're in the UK where paid surrogacy is illegal unless it's for reasonable expenses. For example, buying your surrogacy maternity clothes is legal, paying them a lump sum of £25,000 is not. That's not even getting into the fact that they tricked her and didn't even attempt to provide a translator, a contract in her language, anything. Stories number 9. Aita from bailing on my promise to sew my future SIL wedding dress. My brother and future SIL had planned on getting married by the end of June, but COVID happened. Long before that, he had requested from me, as a wedding gift, to sew the wedding dress of my SIL. I am by no means a professional, but I can do simple stuff rather nicely. I already sew stuff for my family and friends as gifts regularly, little outfits for the kids or cosplays, easy stuff that can be worn even if there are a few defects on it. They had planned on a no-frill wedding with close family and friends only, and my SIL had her eyes on a flowing, layered Grecian tunic-style dress, rather easy to do and not too expensive as far as materials needed, so I agreed. But with the lockdown, well, things got complicated. Lockdown started here on March, so we were unable to get the fittings down, e.g., and pretty soon they realized the wedding would have to be postponed. My SIL lost it. Really. Crying and screaming and everything, nothing we could do or say could calm her down, until my brother asked her what she wanted to do instead, and she said she wanted now a big wedding as a compensation. I mean, well, okay, I get her frustration, I really do. But the main reason they were having a small wedding was to save on some bucks to renovate the house and such. But that's none of my business, I know. My brother relented and they are now planning a big thing for 2021. SIL sent me her new requirements. She wants a full skirt, silk, bodiced, lined, embroidered, train-ed, the whole princess gig, dress. That, of course, I would still pay for in full for the materials. I told her I didn't feel I could do it. That it was too complicated for my skills. She went ballistic. Said I was lying, that I had done complicated things before, and that it was just nothing more than a couple more stitches. I have been trying to explain to my brother, because she doesn't want to speak to me anymore, as I am conspiring to ruin her wedding, that I do not feel able to do it. His solution is that I buy the wedding dress she wants, or I wouldn't be invited to the wedding. So I said okay. I said I wouldn't go, because I couldn't do what they asked me. I can't sew that dress, and I certainly cannot pay for what she wants. I'm now the heartless big sis who doesn't approve of her lil bro wedding wife, and honestly I just want to tell them all to go stitch their two big mouths closed. Sorry if I made mistakes as English isn't my first language. TL, I had agreed to sew on my SIL wedding dress. She changed the model she wanted for something far more complicated and expensive. I bailed out, now my family think I'm heartless. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. NTA, this is what happened when people feel entitled enough to other people's time and money. I feel for you. If anything, you're doing her a favor by not agreeing to the complicated dress because, if it went wrong, she'd still be unhappy. If anyone expected me to pay for their over-the-top wedding dress, I'd have laughed my way out of the door and told them to have a nice life, because if they're happy enough to spend your money on this, they'll be happy enough to expect the same in the future. Reply. I realize that I may also have set up their hopes too high. Yes, I did make princess dresses for some of my nieces, but there is a world of difference between doing a tulle tutu and spraying it with glitter glue for a 7-year-old, even it does look nice when not too close, lol. Commenter 2. The NTA. You agreed to help with the more simple wedding dress and now she expects you to do things that are out of your skill set or purchase it yourself. That's unbelievable. What have your parents said about it? Reply. Right now it's between a, come on, you can do it, you have time and you did lovely things before. Why won't you sew her something pretty like you did for others? Don't you like her? Did you two fight? Which is well, not so bad. I mean, they do have absolute, even if misplaced, faith in me, which is nice. Well, you can also buy a simple dress on sale and better it, wouldn't it work, too? I'm sure it isn't that expensive, no. I'm planning on sending a selection of wedding dresses with their prices so they realize. My lil bro is the youngest of the family and is rather pampered by them. Top comment. Commenter 1. Absolutely NTA. I have been sewing for over 40 years and I know that what she is demanding is beyond my skills. She now wants embroidery and beadwork. That's a completely different skill and would probably take more time than making the original dress entirely. You agreed to do something based on what you were able to do, the fact that she changed what she wanted isn't your fault, and she still expects you to buy the materials. Your SIL and brother are not only but they're bullies as well. They're the ones who changed the deal, not you. SIL is an entitled brat and your brother is a enabling jerk. Tell them they can bully whomever they've roped into finding the test of their circus into buying the dress. And, I'd suggest distancing yourself from such leeches. Go make yourself something pretty. Update, I am really touched by the support and the many great advices I received. Many of you here or on PM gave me ideas and leads on how to deal with this the best way available, as well as pointing out things I hadn't even considered. On Saturday I see my parents. I will explain to them that as much as I appreciate their faith in my capacities, I am not up to the task, and while their support is amazing, at this moment and on that subject, it's misguided. I will do an itemized list of the costs of the first dress, the one I agreed to make, a quote from a professional seamstress of my town for the new dress my SIL want, and a few picked up example of the prices of off-the-rack dresses and show it to them to demonstrate my point. Many of you also pointed out that while my SIL is planning on splurging, the question of who is going to shoulder the extra cost hasn't been raised. I want to touch that point with them too, also raise the point that it's all nice and well to faire de plan sur la comète. I think in English it can be translated as wishing upon the moon, for a 2021 wedding, it's not even guaranteed. Yes, having her wedding ruined is hard and shitty and effed up, and to all of you here going through this, I really hope the postponement will only bring you even better things. But, it doesn't allow her to act like this, and I will not go to that wedding unless big apologies are made. Last but not least. I had no idea there were that much fabric artists, may you all be sewists, embroideresses, stylists, and such. And I had no idea this community would be so supportive, and I also learned a lot, so, again, thank you all. I will update next week when I have seen my parents. Update. So, a lot of things happened. After a few requests, this is the kind of things I had promised. Like one of you so nicely said, mostly my sewing style is full on Monet, the farther you are the best it looks, but for the love of everything that is nice in the world, don't look at it too closely. I went to my parents on Sunday. They understood very quickly the huge difference in skill set required to fulfill the new request. They also discovered the wondrous world of AliExpress and Wish counterfeit designer wedding dresses, because that's where they had gotten their prices range ideas, and quite a few laughs were had over the expectations reality pics I had found. We also went over the extra costs of the new wedding, and I just advised to be careful as we didn't even know yet what would be possible with the epidemic threat still lurking around. 2 days later, my brother stopped by them, and before I could see him IRL, accompanied by future SIL. Keep in mind, too, that this is a recap of what I have been told happened by my parents. I wasn't there for that. Our parents did take my side on the dress story, and at first it seems that my future SIL heard them out until they said they weren't sure they could chip in the extra costs of a store-bought princess dress. Then, again, I wasn't there. This is what they told me happened. My SIL silently mouthed out a very foul word toward my mother, and my dad saw her. All hell broke loose. For a couple of weeks everyone was screaming at everyone else, my bro not really siding with his wife-to-be, nor our parents. Our dad doesn't want anything to do with future SIL at all, ever. Mom is more hopeful than a nice apology and explanations could mend the fences. I still haven't been able to catch my brother face to face. He called and it ended up rather sour since he threw my celibate status at my face as a symbol of failure. But he did later send me an apology text saying he loved me, wanted me at his wedding no matter what, and he would understand should I not want to sew the original dress anyway. Sweet revenge. My dad was so incensed at what had happened that he took me to the fabric shop the very next day and told me to go wild and get yourself enough fabric for a princess dress. So, one pattern, and 3 weeks of intense self-challenging later, it's full of mistakes and crooked sewing, but it was made with the ardent fervor of self-righteousness. https, imager.com, and I swear to the heavens that if she doesn't apologize to my parents I will wear this at her wedding. Edit. Thank you everyone, for the kind words towards my family, here and by PM, the awards, and the advices. The sewing pattern for the yellow dress is the MC call 2041, I'm sorry, I could have sworn it was a simplicity, my bad. My inspiration wasn't the Belle dress, sorry, nor the Hamilton musical, which, I admit, I haven't seen yet. It was a book I had read recently and loved, an old horror novel called The King in Yellow, and I wanted to be a queen in yellow, ominous and angry and powerful when I picked the fabric, cause I was pissed and angry and hurt at what had happened, and I was indeed feeling spiteful. What my SIL mouthed well, a quick French lesson, you can worsen a lot of slurs by adding assy in the end, e.g., uncon is a stupid woman. Uncanas is a stupid, despicable, mean woman. The slur she used was of that category, hence my usually so mellow dad flying off his handle. P.S. I have decided to name that dress. And yes, thanks to you all, she will now and forever be known as Spike Dress. OOP has appeared in the thread 5 years later. Update. Hey, I will give an update but please, respect that I will not give any more updates after that. The marriage didn't happen. They didn't split up then and my brother went LC with us. Dad and I did a princess in a castle photo shoot and he loved it. He was a dashing musketeer captain. COVID did happen a second time. She left him. We lost my little brother at the end of the pandemic for reasons I won't expand here. It was really touch and go for my mother after that but she pulled through with help from our community, and my parents are still there. I visit them at least once a month. I kept that post up for all the nice things people said, especially about my parents even if I hadn't go back to it for a long time. I miss him so much. Stories number 10. My 36M wife, 32F, says our marriage has been tarnished over a Disney trip with my daughter. This is convoluted but I'll attempt to keep it brief. Here we go. Preface. My wife loves Disney World. We are annual pass holders and I would say we go on day trips 30 to 35 times a year and do weekend resort stays once every 2 to 3 months. It's a lot. But I knew this going into the relationship and have completely embraced it. My 2-year-old daughter has been to Disney more times in 2025 than most kids go in their entire childhood. It has become our way to spend the day as a family on weekends, because weekdays I am busy at work running my business while my wife stays at home and watches the kid maintains our house. My wife can be very nitpicky and tends to micromanage. It can get under my skin after a while, and every now and again I get in a get off my case kind of mood. I tend to make passive-aggressive comments rather than directly insult or be mean. Recently, we were getting ready for a day trip to Magic Kingdom. My wife and daughter were excited as usual and woke me up at the crack of dawn. I was exhausted from working all week, a tradesman, and the first thing I said when I got out of bed was, "It's really aggravating that I have to wake up earlier on my weekends to go to Disney than I do on actual work days." This annoyed my wife and set the tone for the morning. She then started barking orders: load the car, dress out daughters, prep the cooler and backpack, we need to be on the road by 8 a.m. When I attempt to pack the bag, she takes over because she doesn't trust I'll bring everything we need. Annoying but I continue on to the next task. We get in the car at 7:51, I swing by the coffee shop for breakfast and coffees. Before leaving the parking lot I make sure my CarPlay is connected to my phone so we can listen to music. Wife gets annoyed and tells me that's not important, just drive. However, I know how she gets if I'm on my phone while driving. Whatever, I'm growing even more on edge. I make a comment like, "Yes ma'am," followed by a whip sound effect with my mouth. She loses it and tells me to go back home. I say, "Oh come on, our kid really is excited to go." But she isn't having it. She demands we go back home because she doesn't want to deal with my negativity and attitude all day. I respond with, "I'm still taking daughter's name," and she said, "Do whatever you want." So I did. And it was a lovely daddy-daughter date. She had a blast. While at the park and receive a text saying I crossed a line and now she's telling me our relationship is permanently damaged. When I return home, divorce is being mentioned. My in-laws agree that I crossed a line and disrespected my wife. My wife tells me I intentionally derail her happiness whenever I can. She tells me I don't care about her. She said I did this as a way to weaponize our child. She is livid. I am big time in the doghouse, because she accuses me of being a self-centered, disrespectful, and that I don't care about her happiness. I think it's worth noting a few things. My wife lost her job last summer due to layoffs, but I told her it was a blessing as I am capable of supporting our family with my job and now she can be with our daughter and we don't need a nanny or day care. I took my wife on 2 Disney cruises this past fall because of her struggling with her job loss, new identity. I do anything and everything I can for my in-laws who aren't well-to-do, because I love my wife and I love them. I recently remodeled their entire bathroom over the summer. By myself. On the weekends as to not interfere with my day job. I try to give my wife her family anything they ask for because I'm the type of person that expresses my love through acts of service and my skill set allows me to do more than most. I don't feel like I'm what my wife is accusing me of being. Apart from these little disagreements blowing up into massive blowouts mainly due to both of our egos and not wanting to budge, we don't really have issues. 99,100 days my life feels like a white picket fence fairy tale. I love my family and my wife very much. But it seems I've really hurt her. Am I missing something? What is happening? Update. I appreciate everyone who took the time to read this and respond with criticism and advice. Thank you all. Some of it was harsh and hard to hear but constructive nonetheless. As far as things are with my wife, this post is only a few hours old, so it's about the same. I do want to clear a few things up after reading every comment. 1. Yes, she wanted to be a som, but the rug was ripped out from under her as her company was sold. We had a plan and financial goals to meet before she felt comfortable retiring. She is enjoying her days at home with our kid. 2. It's clear to me I didn't paint her in the best light, and it came across as me resenting her and not liking her. I take complete responsibility for my words. But I love my wife. She is my best friend and my closest confidant. This is out of the realm of normal. But I know this is my issue. 3. The root of the problem lies with my inability to communicate effectively. And to justify my lack of communication skills, I prop myself on my perceived value of being a provider and a hard worker. It's immature. 4. I am going to start introducing the idea of marriage counseling to her. I think it can be beneficial. Thank you all so much. Stories number 11. Aita for not involving myself with my in-laws' baby lost 3 years running. My sale had a stillbirth 3 years ago. We were so saddened and offered support. She has 3 living children before this happened. At Christmas before the 1-year anniversary, she opened our Christmas card. A few moments later she then picked it back up, stated that she couldn't display it unless her baby's name was included and proceeded to write their name in the card. I tried to put it to the back of my mind but honestly felt she could have taken the card home and wrote their name to save making me the example in front of the entire family. For the first anniversary, we were asked if we would come to a memorial. We all went and felt very awkward. My sibling was stillborn and I grew up in a household that didn't talk about it. Whenever my siblings and I tried to ask questions about our stillborn sibling, our mother would shut us down. For the second anniversary, again we were asked to go along. We went, husband's brother didn't, but again, found it very awkward. During family gatherings, she makes excessive comments and social media posts that nothing feels right without her angel baby being there. My other sister-in-law and I find it upsetting that she makes these comments as we cannot help that our children survived and one of hers didn't. She has 3 other healthy children to care for. During a family gathering she made a comment that her living children recently asked her who her favorite was and that she had responded that her angel baby was her favorite. The room went silent. As a child who was repeatedly told with much venom that I wouldn't have been born had my sibling survived, that broke me. So anniversary 3 rolled around recently. Again, we were asked to attend a memorial, although this time she called it a birthday, which struck me as odd, but we felt it was too much for us to go through again after attending the first 2. We decided not to go, but I chose to light a candle and wore my angel wings brooch for the week before and week after the passing date as a tribute. We've now received a message from MIL to state my SIL is very upset with us all as we didn't make the effort and we should apologize. Whilst I appreciate she's still grieving, she's able to do that in her own way, and if others choose to grieve differently then that's okay too. I don't believe you can dictate to others how to grieve, nor can you have a monopoly on grief. Everyone is different and I respect that she wants to do a grand gesture each year, but she needs to accept that not everyone wants to or feels comfortable being a part of it. I feel like it's not my direct loss to carry on grieving so openly. Yes, I feel sad as it's a loss of life, but at what point do we stop mentioning it all the time? Aita for not involving myself in my in-laws' baby lost 3 years running. Note, I've never lost a baby myself but am the sibling of a stillborn baby. Stories number 12. Aita for yelling at my mother, sister and father for a comment they made over my dress at a family wedding. This is so stupid. Backstory for context: I 41 female have always been a chesty woman. Since I was 13 I have been a DD cup. PCOS will do that to you, it comes with hormone changes, weight gain. Rapid growth of facial hair during puberty. After discovering an ovarian cyst the size of a softball was removed, I went from being flat-chested to looking like an adult film star over a few months. I can't help I developed so quickly. Anyway, my mother and father thought they could try and hide it with turtlenecks and baggy clothes. Where you would see teens wearing cute outfits, I looked like a wannabe nun. Covered from head to toe to hide my body. As I grew up it got worse. I get asked to dances and my parents would buy me dresses that covered me from neck to toes. I swear my claustrophobia was at an all-time high living in that house. Because of this I also developed depression, so at this point I didn't care what I looked like and ate a lot, to cope with everything that was going on in my life and mind. I gained weight, a lot of it, and of course that was just another thing for my parents to complain about. Speed forward to now. I'm all grown up now and living on my own. For the past 20 years I have worked on myself and my mental health to the point I lost 182 pounds. I went from a size 26 to a size 10 to 12 depending on the style of clothing. And got my hormones in check. You'd think my family would be happy for me, right? Wrong. I got invited to my cousin's wedding a couple months ago. I went out and bought a dress for the occasion because why not? I never buy things for myself and I wanted to feel good on this day. I bought a beautiful blush pink dress with a sweet heart neckline and 2/3 sleeve with a lace overlay on top. It was the prettiest thing ever and only showed a little of my cleavage. As soon as I walk into the venue, my mother and father waved me over to their seats so I could sit with them. As soon as I sat down, my father decided it would be the perfect time to tell me while I looked nice it would be better if I would cover up with a wrap or something. I looked at my mother and she is clutching her imaginary pearls and instantly agreed with my father. Like me showing an inch or two of cleavage was the end of the world. I ignored them because I was raised better than to raise my voice in a church. After the ceremony I walked away and didn't say a word. I congratulated my cousin and her husband on the way out. About to head to the reception. And soon as I get in my car with the love of my life, I hear my phone blowing up with texts. I glance at the screen and see both my father, mother and even my sister texting me options of wraps I could borrow for the reception. I sighed and said I don't need one because it's 84 degrees and I am already sweating in what I have on. They all respond with, well, if you knew how to dress yourself then we wouldn't have to help you. That's when I lost it. I texted back, you all realize I am 41 years old, I can dress myself right. I know me being big-chested must be so bad for you. Since I'm the one who has to live with them. And has lived with them for over 20 years. This is my body and I will wear what I want where I want. Stop trying to police my outfits. You bitched and blamed me when I was heavier and now that I feel good in my own skin you want to tear me down more. I'm done. I will see you at the reception and if any of you tries to cover me up to save face I will not hesitate to cut you all off. I turned my phone off and had my boyfriend drive us to the reception. He was so proud of me for standing up to my parents that we might have taken a detour to a secluded beach and made out for an hour. LOL. Anyway, once we got to the reception my cousin and aunt pulled me to the side and scolded me for sending my parents the message I sent. I explained to them that they have been policing my clothing for decades and I'm done with it. I'm an adult and I can decide what's appropriate and what's not. My aunt understood but my cousin said she isn't taking sides and wished I hadn't started drama on her day. I told my cousin if she was so concerned with drama then maybe she needed to go talk to my parents and tell them to stop telling people how I upset them. So Reddit, am I the whole? Edit to add, some people in the comments were shocked about the dress color choice. The theme was 2 shades of pink. Just envision the wedding scene from Steel Magnolias, a blush pink and dusty rose shade of pink. And to add, my aunt who also had PCOS and was rather large-chested herself before she got a reduction finally understood where I was coming from. My mother was even wearing the same shade of pink as myself. So the cousin was not mad about the pink color dress, she was just upset that I upset my parents and sister. The only other person who was on my side and didn't see a problem with my outfit was my brother. The rest of the reception my brother and boyfriend were playing defense, keeping my parents and sister away from me the rest of the night. There's a whole other backstory behind why I have a strained relationship with my family, but I'll probably make an update on that one at some point. I do want to discuss things with my family, I am just not sure how to start. I don't know if I should go in guns blazing or gently bring it up so they don't feel like I am attacking them. I just want my voice to be heard. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, I don't think you did anything wrong. The only thing different I would have done is not sit with them. I would keep our conversation short if you have to see your parents, but other than that I would go low no contact. But that's just me. Reply, I've been low contact for 20 years since I moved out. I only see them on special occasions. Over the last few years I've been trying to reconnect but it just ends the same way. So I stick to holidays and weddings, funerals to interact. Commenter 2, NTA, and ditto on cousin to call out your family instead of trying to lay blame on you for starting drama after you explained the source of it. That makes me think she shares internalized big tatas are scandalizing like your parents and sister. Just speculating on you cousin's take as an outsider of course, but her mom your aunt even understood sympathize your situation so. Edit, my mind also overthinking that your cousin not taking sides means, I don't want one less wedding gift. Reply, right as of right now I am low to no contact with the cousin as well after her scolding. My aunt had the same issue growing up with PCOS and larger breasts before she got a reduction. It is what it is so I won't cut the aunt off but everyone else who tells me to cover up I have no qualms cutting people off. Commenter 3, NTA look them dead in the eye and ask, why have you been obsessed with your daughter's breasts for 25 years and say literally nothing else raising my voice each time they stopped. If people don't understand what causing a scene is, show them. It's gross that they are doing this. Reply, I understand when I was younger they didn't want people sexualizing me, but at 41 years old, come on. It's ridiculous if you ask me. How old are OOP's parents? 80s? Reply, close enough, they are in their 70s now. OOP should be proud of herself for standing up for herself to her family. Reply, I love, sister, I'll be using that from now on. And I agree, I honestly think my cousin secretly likes drama and wanted it to continue, but she had to be diplomatic in the moment, but her annoyance should have 1000% been at my parents, not me. It took years for me to finally stand up for myself. This isn't the first time I was made to be the bad guy in situations. When I lost the 182 pounds, I was told not to talk about it with people in front of my mom because she was insecure and hurt. So if anyone asked me how I did it, I just had to say I will text you about it later. Commenter 4, NTA. But your parents and sister are. Good for you for standing up to them, finally. Be proud of yourself and your body. That is what makes you beautiful inside and out. Red Heart. Reply, I had a feeling they were going to rope my sister into this. She's their golden child, smart, beautiful, has the golden ticket grandchildren. I just wish they saw me for me and not as an accessory they can pick and choose to have around. Commenter 5, NTA. Good for you for standing your ground. Yay. Your parents and sister suck. Also, what an amazing partner and brother you have to defend you and stand up for you. After explaining, I'm glad your aunt is on your side. Also, I get that bride is upset, but she's upset at the wrong person. She should be upset at your parents and sister, not you. How did she even know? Unless your parents or sister said something. Reply, from what I was told by my brother, the first thing my parents did walking into the reception was show him the text I sent trying to get a reaction out of him. He told my parents that's what I said wasn't wrong. They even tried to put a wrap on my chair that I was assigned. He grabbed it and threw it in his car before I showed up. When he didn't react like they wanted, that's when they pulled the bride to the side asking her to intervene on their behalf. Which then got my aunt involved. I showed them my text response and that's when my aunt got on my side and the cousin was confused about the whole thing. Update 1. On Saturday I contacted my brother and sister to talk about what happened a few months ago at the wedding. My sister was hesitant but agreed and my brother was all in and said he'd be there. We met up at my sister's place and sat down. I started off the conversation that I love my family and would never insult them in any way, but for a 41-year-old woman to be reprimanded over a dress that wasn't even too revealing was ridiculous. My sister tried defending herself and my parents, but my brother put a stop to it right there. He mentioned all the times mom, dad and her would always nitpick my outfits growing up, never allowing me the freedom to have my own personality or style. It wasn't about her, it was about me and how I feel. That shut her up. LOL. All I wanted was for her to see how it feels for me. Always being knocked down when I have something good going on in my life. Always feeling like a second-class citizen in the family. Never living up to their expectations. Not wanting to be the dutiful daughter anymore and wanting to make my own choices and living the life that I want. And it doesn't include covering myself up from the neck down. My boobs were no longer up for discussion. If they can't be happy that I am still willing to be a part of the family, then so be it. And that went for her as well. I laid it all out. If she can't support me against my parents, then I would have to cut her out too. I also mentioned how being cut out of Christmas because of my stunt at the wedding was uncalled for. I told her if she wants to side with mom and dad, that's fine, but I will no longer accept toxic behavior. We are all grown-ups and should act that way. No more involving people into family drama. She agreed. She said she would talk to mom and dad on my behalf because as of right now I am blocked by them. My brother on the other hand decided to be petty. He's planning a family Easter get-together and is going to invite everyone except my parents. He might go over there in the morning to see them and talk some sense into them, but he's not holding his breath on them realizing their mistakes. So as of right now I have both siblings on my side, but we will see for how long that lasts. If I have a blowout with my parents in the future I will update. But as of right now I guess this is all I can give. Additional information from OOP, who gives an example of what the dress looked like. OOP, it was like this but blush pink and no beading at the top. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, don't be so sure about your sister. She may tell her parents what's going on. Or give in to them. Best to have a plan ready in case they rock up at Easter. Reply, if it happens I know never to trust her again. Commenter 2, your brother is awesome. It must be nice having him have your back. Reply, he wasn't around a lot when I was growing up, 10-year age gap. I'm guessing he saw my parents' toxic behavior way before I did. So I guess this is his way of being there for me now. Update 2, I'm done with my parents for real, I am done. I was hoping to have an update for you guys after Easter and well, it happened sooner than expected. I'm shaking while I write this for you lovely potatoes. Get the vodka shots, tea, or whatever you need to get through this drama with me. My parents have gone off the deep end. They are trying to convince me to move into a facility for mentally and physically disabled people. On top of the PCOS diagnoses I got at 13, I was also born with spina bifida. I didn't mention it in my previous post because I didn't think it was relevant, but apparently it is. They came over to my apartment yesterday under the guise of wanting to work out things from the wedding 8 months ago. It went as well as you'd expect. They acknowledged that what they asked of me at the wedding was out of line, and I thought that was the end of it. Wrong. Towards the end of their visit they pulled out some documents for me to read. On the top it was a form to make them my medical proxy, and in the event of their deaths my sister would become my medical proxy. When I flipped the page to read more of the document I saw a pamphlet for a group home facility tucked neatly in the middle. I picked up the pamphlet and read it out loud to them. They looked at me, expected me to agree right away. They forget I am no longer their dutiful daughter. I chuckled and flung the pamphlet across the table. How dare they? I was so angry I told them to take their paperwork and leave. They looked as though I stabbed them in the back repeatedly. They tried explaining to me that once they are gone I won't have anyone to take care of me. I told them I have my boyfriend of 5 years and my brother and sister if I needed help. I don't need a facility. I've been living on my own for 20 years. I don't need help. I've done a pretty good job of living on my own and doing things for myself. I pay my bills on time and never once been evicted. The only medical emergency I've had in the last 20 years is when I had a gallbladder attack and I called 911. They just kept saying we are looking out for you. How long do you expect your boyfriend to stay once he realizes how much it takes to take care of you? They downplayed my relationship like it was just a phase in my life. To be clear, it is not a phase. He asked me to move in with him at the end of April. Which my parents have no idea about because, well, we haven't been on speaking terms in 8 months. I told them firmly to leave or I would be calling the cops on them for trespassing. They were no longer my parents and to leave immediately. My mom was crying. My dad looked like he wanted to bury me 8 feet under my floor. They left without another word but left the paperwork on my table. In a fit of rage I tore up the papers and threw them in the trash. I was blaring music and throwing things into boxes when my brother and sister came into my apartment. I guess they got frantic calls from our parents saying I lost my mind and they were afraid I might do something stupid. I guess my parents didn't shut my front door all the way, so when they showed up and heard the music blaring they honestly thought I was doing something dumb. I didn't see them coming in, so when I noticed my brother and sister standing at my bedroom door I screamed like a banshee and threw a book at my brother's head. LOL. After realizing it was just my siblings I walked over to them and hugged them both tightly. After the hugs my brother asked me what was wrong. Without any words I walked over to the trash can and pulled out the paperwork I threw out and showed him. The first words spoken were from my sister. She said she knew they were controlling, but this was a whole new level. My brother, ever the rock to us siblings who I will refer to as Zeus, turned me towards him and told me we will fight this together. What started as a debate over a damn dress had now escalated to this disaster. My sister, who I will call Athena, stood strong beside me and was giving me reassuring shoulder squeezes. My brother advised me to speak to a lawyer just in case my parents escalate in sending the cops or adult protective services to my home. I wouldn't be worried if I didn't think my parents weren't capable, but I'm not so sure anymore. Athena in the meantime told me to get all my medical records updated to show that my spina bifida hasn't worsened to a significant degree. We also came up with a plan to get my therapist to write a note saying I am of sound mind and I am not a risk to myself or others. My siblings also advised me to move in with my boyfriend sooner than planned. So the plan is to move in this weekend with my boyfriend. To say my boyfriend was pissed not about me moving in with him sooner but what my parents tried to pull, I had to spend 30 minutes on the phone with him so he wouldn't go on a rampage. He was so pissed when I mentioned how my parents described our relationship. I could tell he was on the verge of exploding. He also gave me an idea to get an IQ test done so I can prove I'm not as disabled as my parents will try and claim I am to put me into a facility. After a few hours and making lists of all the things I needed to get in order, my brother decided it would be best if he stayed the night to protect me in case officials showed up at my door. And to all who is wondering, my brother is no longer inviting my parents to Easter at his house. As of this morning he and I both cut our parents off. He had a long drawn-out conversation with them on speaker so I can hear when he confronted them about what they did to me. Let's just say my parents think they are in the right and that I just don't understand their concern. I understand completely. They want me to be locked away so they can portray the perfect image which I apparently do not fit into. As for my sister, I'm not asking my sister to cut my parents off, that will be her decision, but I am no longer comfortable being in their presence. As of now I am still invited to Easter with my brother and his kids and maybe some cousins and aunts and uncles, but it's still up in the air if I will attend. Because knowing my parents, they will most likely crash the party and make a scene. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. When I was talking about the gotcha being a kick in the guts, I did not even remotely envisage this. Your parents are absolutely awful human beings. Wait for them to start screaming about grandparents' rights and kicking your door down if you ever decide to have kids. Don't let your sister or your parents know where you live. Reply, I thankfully have no children. God forbid if I did, they would try anything to have them taken away. Claiming I'm an unfit parent. But I would never do what they are currently doing to me. I'm happy to be the wild hippie auntie to my sister and brother's kids. Commenter 2, they what? But why? I understand you and your siblings say your parents are controlling, but this makes no sense. You're 41. Spina bifida doesn't affect your intelligence or your ability to make your own decisions, and if you live in a country with proper medical care and control, then I don't understand why they think you're incapable of making your own decisions. What? I reread your previous posts because I had some memory of them, but not a lot. I still don't understand, where did this come from? Are they in their sound minds? Because I'd check for dementia or something. I swear I don't understand why they do that. I'm not saying your parents are nice people, nor am I saying they're not super controlling, you've covered that already a lot, but I still can't understand why and why now, so weird. But you are doing the right thing, following your siblings' advice and moving with your safe person, it's the best you can do. Good for you for cutting out those insane parents of yours. Reply, they are losing their grip on me, they were used to me bending to their will on all things because I was shy and not confident at all. But after going to therapy, I realized that I need to make decisions for myself. And stand up to bullies. Over the past 10 years I've come into my own confidence and no longer deal with bullies. That is why. They've pulled similar things in the past that I overlooked and just laughed off, not taking it seriously, but now I know better. Commenter 3, NTA. Someone needs to ask them who they'll call for help when they need it in their older years. Older years aren't that far off, TBH. They have alienated 2 of their 3 children already. Reply, they think my sister will still be around. They barely acknowledge my brother's kids and spoil the crap out of my sister's kids. But I have a feeling she will no longer deal with them either. Commenter 4, I am so sorry. They are insane. If it's not on the list, change your phone number. Also, when you do a change of address, do it to a P.O. box so they won't know where you live. If they continue to try and harass you, talk to an attorney. Commenter 5, don't give in to your parents. I'm glad you have a strong support system. Talk to a lawyer and make sure you have everything in place to be sure they can't get control over your life. Stories number 13. Aita for taking my BL to small claims court for a prank. I recently took my brother-in-law to small claims court over a prank he pulled on me, and now my wife and her family are furious. I need to know if I'm in the wrong here. A few months ago, we were at a family barbecue. I had a few too many beers and fell asleep in a hammock with my shirt off. My BAL, who was completely sober, thought it would be hilarious to fill my belly button with super glue. At some point, I must have touched it, because when I woke up, I had glue partially dried in my belly button and on my finger. We tried to remove it, but it was stuck. The glue had adhered to my skin, and when we attempted to peel it off, it caused some tearing around the edges. Unfortunately, my job's insurance has a $1,000 ER copay, but I had no choice, I had to go to the ER. They used a solvent and an ointment to remove the glue, and after everything, I was left with a medical bill of $2,253. I asked my BL to cover the costs since he caused the situation. He refused. After trying to resolve it privately, I took him to small claims court, and I won. However, he still hasn't paid. This has caused a major rift in my family. My wife is upset, and her family thinks I overreacted. So, Aita for taking him to court over this. Stories number 14. Aita for not welcoming this child into my apartment. I'm 30F, a single parent who recently got her own apartment and have been really big on protecting my space. My child's 12F, dad and I have a less than decent co-parent situation, but I try to make it work for my kid's sake. We have an understanding that pickup drop-off is at the lobby of the building since I don't want him in my business. My apt, a few weeks ago, my kid calls me saying she's 5 minutes away while I was in the shower, so I told her to just come upstairs and to yell when she came in the APT. I rush out the bathroom and get ready to welcome my kid home when I see her come inside the house with a little boy. This boy is my ex's other child, 2M, and is standing in my foyer. I immediately ask my child WTH is going on. She explains her dad asked her to babysit for a few hours while he went to run some errands. I grabbed the little boy and my kid and walked downstairs to our lobby. Luckily the lobby has a lounge area. I call the boy's mom to tell her she needs to come pick up this baby now because I didn't agree on anything and my 12 years old can't make decisions this big on her own. Now this lady is yelling at me and I tell her she needs to stop yelling before I report this as child neglect. The little boy started crying for his mom. My kid tried to calm him down and I loaned them my phone to watch videos. About 40 minutes pass by, my ex and his partner show up together. My ex looks upset with my daughter, then they both come for me telling me I'm over-exaggerating and blowing things out of proportion, that it was my daughter's idea and she wanted to spend more time with her brother. That I was being heartless by not letting him wait in my apartment. I tell them I didn't agree to watch the child nor did I say he could come over. As a matter of fact, none of them are welcomed, which is why we agreed pickup is at the lobby. I direct most of my anger and disappointment to my ex because how dare he put the blame on my kid. My daughter was mad at me for a while saying she could have babysat and that she didn't mind. I told her I understand she's excited to share her space with her baby brother, especially because it's a new apartment and she finally has her own bedroom, and that maybe in the future we could arrange a visit. But that it wasn't fair because the little boy doesn't actually know me and I don't know him. She was a little upset but said she understood. I told her she had nothing to feel guilty about, this was her dad's and stepmom's fault because they're the grown-ups and didn't call to ask. Stories number 15. Aita for informing my parents that their opinion does not matter when it comes to what my wife and I name our children. My parents are upset because my wife's and my children will not be given family names or some variation of names already in the family. That's mostly what was always done. The few exceptions were to honor someone outside the family. More recently some of the younger gen are choosing different variations of the names. Think Jamie instead of James or Micah instead of Michael. My wife and I are not doing this and I have given my wife the ability to make the choice of what to name our kids. I have my reasons and this is a gift I'm giving her because I know she's got names she has loved for a long time and would like to use. And she doesn't have family names to share. She doesn't have a family to make the tradition fair. We're also not interested in looking into my family tree for names. Our children will get my last name, which is now ours. But it was always mine. To me it doesn't make sense to force her to use names from my family when she can't contribute in that way and when we're already represented in the name. Even with that my wife has asked for my feelings on names she loves and she's weighing how I feel. My parents don't know the names are her decision. But they did blame her for us not continuing with family names. I stepped in and told them to cut it out and blame me because it was my decision. They think she should be talking me around to the family names. They know she doesn't have her own family or names to choose from, so they feel like she should say it doesn't matter if my side's the only one represented. I told them we're already represented in the last name and that I was done talking with them on this. The only reason I told them before my wife gives birth is so I know whether they need to be kept away when baby is born. They would say something negative right after delivery if that's when they realize we've used a non-family name. And I know that because they have done it twice before. Once with mom's best friend's daughter. They were allowed to come meet the baby at the hospital and insulted the name in the room with the new mom. The second time was my dad's godson's child. So there is no trusting that they would keep their opinions to themselves because the baby is here. Right now they're making it longer before they'll meet the baby. I told them that and in response they went to my wife and told her they felt their opinion should be heard more. That they were the grandparents after all. She told me what they said and I told them their opinion doesn't matter when it comes to what we name our kids. They told me it's wrong to deny someone their opinion. I said they can have it but they need to keep it to themselves. They said my handling of this was unhealthy and denying them their freedom of speech. It made me roll my eyes. I blocked them for a while to give us a break from it. But are they right? Is it wrong to tell them their opinions don't matter? Stories number 16. I slept through an entire day of work, a 5-year story. I started a new senior position in a new city about 2 months ago and I was killing it. It was just such a great fit of the job matching my abilities. I moved several integral projects forward and took some business trips in my first few weeks. Everyone was saying it felt like I'd been here years. My boss and the head of the firm were completely tickled, my coworkers and I were clicking great, it was workplace nirvana. Danger zone, I was saying yes to everything because I was loving the work and wanted my boss to know he could count on me. I have a bit of a savior syndrome, so when people say they need my help, I can practically never say no, but my boss is awesome and I love this work so I don't even want to say no. And he has acknowledged over the last 2 months that he's thrown a lot on my plate, and has thanked me just for taking the job because he's less stressed than he's been in months. But I was in a new city, with a totally different lifestyle and schedule, and I was only getting around 3 hours of sleep a night. I would say that probably 65% of sleeplessness was caused by work stress anxiety and the rest was a mix of lifestyle shakeup, like a new commute and sacrificing sleep to do things like hunt for a new apartment. I started coming in later and later, the office is flexible, within reason, until one day last week I slept through the entire day. I know that is completely shocking, I'm shocked too, and so incredibly embarrassed. I woke up late, emailed the administrator to let her know I was on my way in, and then when I sat on the bed to put on my shoes I must have just passed right back out again for about another 6 hours. Just sheer exhaustion, I guess. My boss called me and left a concerned voicemail, then followed up with a concerned email a few hours later. I was so mortified I didn't know what to do, so I stayed home, called the doctor, got a prescription for sleep meds, and then tried to calm myself down before calling my boss to apologize and explain. Other than apologizing over and over, I'm not even sure what I said. I definitely mentioned averaging about 3 hours of sleep a night over the last 3 weeks and just generally having too much on my plate, and that I have anxiety over wanting to do everything to the best standard possible, which was making me lose sleep. He was amazing, he was concerned about me and my health first and foremost, then also about our deliverables. We came up with a 2-week work plan that he confirmed with my colleagues. They took me off one project temporarily and cut way back on my role on another. I'm also taking a few days to work undisturbed from home, which was his way of letting me know it's okay to nap. He made it clear I don't have to share anything I don't want to, and gave me an encouraging pep talk about being human and big life changes. On my end, I am urgently prioritizing sleep hygiene to mitigate the exhaustion, and creating lists up the wazoo because I get forgetful when I'm tired. The problem, or not problem, now is everyone is treating me extremely sensitively. Maybe I'm projecting because I feel like such an a-hole for letting the team down, but it seems like they're walking on eggshells and being extra gentle. On the one hand, I appreciate it, but on the other hand I hate the reminder that I effed it up so royally. The ramifications are rippling forward 6 to 12 months, because of how they redistributed my workload. I feel like I want to avoid everybody. I feel like I don't deserve to be here, like I let everybody down and now we're all waiting for it to happen again. A small part of me also wonders if age or gender are playing into it at all. I am a woman who is younger than the other senior members of the team, and the dynamic has been sort of like a gentleman-lady, mentor-man thing. To me, this whole thing seems like an epic professional mistake. Aside from turning back time, what do I do now? Some of comments. Hills to die on, quit flogging yourself. You are still valued by the organization and you will continue to go on to do a great job. Reply, thank you for being so kind. Your username made me laugh, too. Commenter, thumbs way up to both you and your boss workplace, post-incident. Sending good sleep vibes your way as well. Reply, thank you, goodness knows I could use those. Side note for any other insomniac anxiety sleep folks, tart cherry extract and ashwagandha came recommended by a dietitian. Helping so far. Commenter, LW, letter writer, if it helps substitute, unwell, for tired. Since you don't have an illness, I wouldn't use the word sick. But you weren't well. If you were, you wouldn't have slept for a whole day. Adopting that mindset will, hopefully, help you reframe this. I understand being embarrassed, Lord knows, I would be, but this isn't embarrassing. You were overworked and overstressed. As far as getting everyone to treat you normal, just be normal. That was honestly my first thought. Obviously, don't go charging straight ahead into how you were before because then the cycle will repeat. But keep doing good work. Keep showing up. And, eventually, they will settle back into treating you like before. Reply, I think this is almost the same advice I would give to a friend. Thank you so much for this. Burnout and taking time for yourself. Reply, you're right. I really need to. I burned out really badly a few years ago and it took ages to recover. You're so right that I need to really focus on this and make it habitual. Commenter, OP, everyone here is doing the right things, you're taking responsibility for your health, you're doing a great job at work, and your boss and team are trying to support a healthy work-life balance. If I were your boss I'd feel lucky to have such a great employee and I'd feel horrible that I allowed your workload to get so extreme as to affect your health. Your boss is probably just as eager to put this behind him as you are. And it will blow over soon. Take care of yourself and keep crushing it at work, but within reason, and everyone will forget about this sooner than you think. Reply, you know, I'm wondering if I'm freaking out because of my last job. 3 months in, I had a back spasm that kept me home for 2 days, with notice communication, and I was almost fired for it. That really colored my perception of what's acceptable to a boss in your early months. Time to reflect and recalibrate. Update post 1. 2 months ago I wrote to you in a panic after sleeping through a day of work. After months of doctor's visits, it turns out I have been suffering from Crohn's disease and fibromyalgia. I just wanted to say thank you, because the advice from you and your readers was the first step in normalizing what felt like a shameful experience. Rather than view myself as a slacker or screw-up, I felt encouraged to address my fatigue as a real issue. Things are still tough, trying to manage chronic illnesses with a new and demanding job, but I'm really grateful that you chose to answer my question. Update post 2. I've been at my new job a year now, and 9 months since sleeping through a full day of work. That exhaustion episode turned into months of doctor's appointments and eventual diagnoses for Crohn's disease, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, fibromyalgia, anemia, and multiple vitamin deficiencies. One of the medications for one of those caused another unrelated major organ to begin malfunctioning, and also brings with it an increased risk of certain cancers that require regular screenings. I go to multiple doctors, labs, and hospitals on average 2 to 3 times a month, and it has certainly made work life, and life in general, pretty challenging. At times I wondered if I'd have to simply say nope to my ideal career as a mover and shaker, as well as other future life aspirations. All that said, somehow I finagled a raise in July, and get the not-so-sneaky feeling that my boss is grooming me for a leadership position. It's been a wild roller coaster ride of a year, to say the least. I wanted to share my lessons learned with you and the readers, whom I affectionately refer to in my head as the Peanut Gallery. Allison and reader consensus advice. I credit you all with removing the stigma of shame from my initial exhaustion episode, and spurring me to seek real medical attention. In particular, commenter Wendy Darling made a note about how US culture makes us sometimes feel that poor health is our fault, like a moral failing. I realized this was spot on for me, and putting it into words went a long way towards mediating the effects. Other commenters really hammered home the importance of self-care and avoiding repeat events, which I've made strides towards, but continue to work at. I've learned that aspirational and ambitious aren't always compliments. None of this would be possible without my excellent manager and colleagues. I mean, really. I feel forever indebted to the folks at work for their compassion, understanding, and flexibility. I don't know how anybody with chronic illness can function in a hostile or unaccommodating work environment, truthfully. It's only because of my workplace accommodations that I'm still able to do my best work despite constantly, literally constantly, being sick, and I'm so grateful to feel that I'm still valued. Plus, being able to work makes me feel like a contributing member of society and gives me respite from the other yuckiness. Chronic illness is a lot of things, but chronic is right there in the name. For a while, my co-workers would ask if I was feeling better, daily, until I got around to explaining, one by one, that I might never actually feel better and that I needed to just take some time to find my new normal, but thank you for your concern. In our line of work, finding the new normal is a familiar concept, albeit in a different context, so thankfully I think we're all on the same page. I worked a modified work schedule for about 3 to 4 months. Due to the nature of my illnesses, I have good days and bad days, but almost nothing about it is predictable. My doctors and I thought maybe a day in day out alternating schedule would help, so that on good days I could still be productive remotely, and on bad days when I had to be in the office I only had to make it through that one day before knowing there would be a recovery day following. It also allowed me to schedule health-related appointments when I was already remote, which cut back on disruptiveness. We went this path instead of invoking modified disability or part-time work. I preemptively decided to come back to the office full-time before the official start date because I was finding that the back and forth was disrupting my workflow, and being in the office full-time felt more manageable once I got 2 of my worst symptoms under control. Plus, to be fully honest, if my boss thinks I could potentially be a leader here, then I'm still going to be hellbent on climbing upwards. I've had to cut back on travel but keep in close contact with my boss about what seems manageable. My boss continues to be phenomenal about reallocating work. The team in general is willing to play to each other's strengths, even if it means shuffling job responsibilities and roles on an ad hoc basis. For projects where I cut back on travel, I do more of what I like to think of as ground support, managing relationships, putting my writing-editing skills to good use, strategic oversight, etc. Our work by nature is chaotic, so this is probably less wonky in our industry than it might be in others. Ultimately, I decided, stubbornly, as some commenters noted, hey, this chronically ill thing is not for me. I'm not delusional, it can't be cured, and the best I can hope for is remission. It requires a truly stupid amount of managing in both lifestyle, diet choices and organization, and money. Holy moly, the healthcare costs even with insurance. But I am an ambitious, stubborn person and I can't imagine a life where I'm limited because of my autoimmune illnesses. I got things to do, places to be. Actually, it's a little funny because it seems that both my autoimmune system and I are overachievers in this situation. Mostly in my ups and downs I learned that ill doesn't mean incompetent. You still have valuable qualities to lend to your workplace, although balancing work, life, and wellness will be at times unfairly challenging. I briefly considered contracting either a concierge medical service or a personal patient advocate, because at times the volume of appointments, follow-ups, and bills was overwhelming. Ultimately I chose not to, but I'm grateful to know that services are available to help manage the full-time patient lifestyle in the event that you're both a full-time patient and also happen to be a full-time something else and actually want to accomplish other things. In 2019 I hope to see clinical signs pointing towards remission, and I've set my sights on finishing my doctoral degree that was rudely interrupted by health issues. Hopefully after that, more time for enjoyable life experiences and maybe, just maybe, a promotion. Some of comments. Still working on prioritizing myself. It doesn't come naturally to me at all. I'm actually getting myself a therapy cat. There's something about pet and plant care that reminds me to take care of myself. It's like, okay, it's time to take care of the other living things, and also me. Self-care. Still working on making self-care a priority. Sometimes it's hard just knowing what kind of self-care I need, like last night I had to decide, wake up early for yoga, or sleep in. Which does my body need more? I went for sleep and that was the right call, but I'm not always right. Someone said it would take about 3 years to really understand the ins and outs of my conditions, so I'm giving myself a very gentle learning curve. Update post 3. I wrote in 5 years ago and here's how things went after that. I stayed at that job for 5 years, or 4 from my last update. It was overall a great experience. I learned a ton and became close with my manager, professionally. I managed projects that seemed impossible at the time but grew professionally by leaps and bounds. Very recently my manager from that job gave me a glowing recommendation to take a huge jump forward in my career, that came with a 70% pay rise. I am now in a new, much more demanding position, as leadership in a new organization. I am still chronically ill. This very moment I am experiencing a flare-up, but some commenters said the first 3 years of chronic illness are the worst and then you learn the rhythms, and that was spot on for me. I don't feel the need to discuss my illness at work because I am able to manage it pretty well with our, company-wide, flexible working arrangements. I now lead a central department and was told just yesterday by a departing employee that working with me showed him what good management can look like. I was grinning ear to ear. Still so much to learn, but my own health work journey has made me a very empathetic and flexible, and adaptable, leader. I led through a massive leadership crisis last year, and I think in large part one was able to do that by using my own prior experience from challenging times. I read AAM, Ask a Manager, most days on a break at some point and recommend it to other people. The dysfunctional stories in particular fill me with gratitude to be working in a place where people tell me, multiple times a day, how much they appreciate me. One of our core values is kindness. I just hope other readers know that there are workplaces that will value you as an imperfect person and an imperfect employee. If you don't already have it, demand better from your employers. I wish that everybody was as lucky as I am to have personal struggles and still be able to feel supported and successful at work. P.S. I never finished my doctoral dissertation. That's one of the things I had to cut, it just wasn't in the cards. I don't regret it, it hasn't held me back, I still learned a ton. So no, I am not flawless or perfect and didn't manage to make everything work out. But I am 100% comfortable with the sacrifices and trade-offs and have no regrets. Final update post. In 2018 I wrote to say I slept through a whole day of work in my 3rd month on the job, at my last job. I am still reading AAM pretty much every weekday. My mom thinks it's hilarious I read work blogs, on break. It was only June of this year that I wrote in with the 5-year update, but things have changed dramatically since then, for the worse, unfortunately. I took on this new, challenging pseudo-leadership position just before that update. It comes with a workload that no mortal could finish in a given workweek. I was pulling a lot of nights and weekends. A few weeks after I wrote in, I had another severe illness episode. I didn't sleep through work, it was something else, equally visible and alarming. I realized that I'd been ignoring warning signs for a while, again, and not taking care of myself. Sigh. I do think I've grown in the years since I first wrote, but I still really wrestle with concepts like success and productivity and personal identity being tied to work. It's also so hard when other people can do things like guzzle coffee, skip lunch, work weekends, or multitask, and not have to pay the price for it after. I can't, and it's frustrating to not be able to keep up. I am fortunate, again, that my manager in this role is as compassionate as the first one. I have a completely unique work arrangement now. My team work mostly hybrid and async already, so we just agreed to take it there completely. We are entirely results focused, nobody cares how you do the work, when, or where, just that the agreed result is met. I extend this to the rest of my team. I don't need them in the office if I'm not there either. They keep me posted on their progress and I call them when we need to discuss anything. We have removed maybe 90% of meetings this way. I honestly believe async work, flex work, is the future of work. My team does really cool things with the flex, I'm obviously mostly just using it to rest and see doctors, but they're making progress in their volunteer work, their family lives, and hobbies. I was told I am, by far, the best manager they've had, which is wild considering how badly I think I'm underperforming. I do maybe 30% of the work I used to do, I reallocated parts to other people and dropped some of the lower priority stuff, but the team's metrics are excellent and they're really happy and seem to be thriving, so maybe that's a silver lining in all this. This entire experience has really challenged my sense of identity, maybe that's true for other chronic illness sufferers. I struggle with intense shame about not being able to do as much work as I think I should. My therapist says I need to broaden my definitions of success and productivity, because if I take care of myself I am being productive, and if I can get well again then that is a success. It feels like a small knife in the belly every time I have to say no to a new request or miss a goal deadline. Ambition might be my hamartia. It also feels like my personal life is stuck, because I'm not well enough to do anything. I'm just really grateful that I have supportive colleagues who give me the benefit of the doubt. So many of the posts at AAM are about horrendous workplaces, and I think I would be 2x out of a job if I worked at one of them. I did want to make a note, out of all the people I work with, by far the least empathetic have been the HR department. I've been shades of purple at how frustrating it is. Literally the day I had an episode, witnessed by the entire staff, I had messages from HR people to just do this one thing before you go out sick. Internal screaming. And it wasn't, like, sick leave stuff. It was general work stuff. They're so infuriating that my boss and I just haven't engaged them at all in the current arrangements. I probably should be documenting this, or using FMLA, or whatever, but since we trust each other we're just doing it our own way. I also neglected to mention in previous updates, my original diagnosis was wrong. Super wrong. So it took about 3 years to actually sort it all out. We still don't think we have the whole picture, it doesn't explain what's happening right now. I'm working with 5 different specialists, keeping track of my medical life is a job in itself. By the way, professional patient advocates are a thing. I haven't hired one, but if anybody else out there is chronically ill, just know there are professionals who can support you. It's preaching to the choir to say this to the AAM readers, but here's what I've learned in the last 5.5 years. Empathy in the workplace will pay dividends. Give people the benefit of the doubt. This is not the same as being a doormat, you can maintain standards while giving grace. Flex when you can, because you can. There will be times you have to be rigid, save your inflexibility for those times. Communication may well be the most important skill at work, maybe in life. If you learn how to have hard conversations, how to tailor your message to your audience, to understand things from another perspective, you can reap benefits you couldn't imagine before. Don't suffer a-holes. Go over, around, under, run the other way, whatever you need to do. There is a huge, wide world out there full of well-intentioned, kind, compassionate people, and if you're not a part of that world yet, make it a priority to find an entry point. It makes so many other things possible. Before I took this job, I told myself I wanted to work with clear-hearted and full-hearted people. People who show up as humans, and who know what's truly important. It's one of the best decisions I ever made. That, and continuing to be a regular at AAM. Stories number 17. Nightmare situation, me, 35F, with partner, 40M, my son and his nephew, 15MS. 4 years ago I met Bob, 40M. Bob had recently become the guardian of his nephew Ben after the death of Ben's parents in a car accident. Ben is the same age as my son Jason, 11 at the time, now 15. At first it seemed perfect. I was over the moon at finding a man who was not put off by the prospect of taking on a soon-to-be teenage stepson. Jason's father is not in the picture, and in spite of being very different personalities, the boys got along from the beginning, so Bob and Ben moved into my house within less than a year. Ben was always a quieter, more creative kid where Jason is more athletic and boisterous, and from the start I got the sense that Bob understood Jason's way of being more than he did Ben's. At first he would take them both to sports games, but Ben obviously had no interest and so pretty soon he just took Jason. At the time it seemed like a natural choice. Ben was bored at the games and Jason honestly reveled in having all Bob's attention, but after that things started unraveling. As they grew older the difference in the boys became more obvious, their choices of clothing, hairstyle, friends, music, hobbies, etc., and so did Bob's preference. He started making little comments comparing them and encouraging Ben to be more like Jason. At first it seemed like he was trying to be helpful, thinking that Jason's way of being was healthier, he's more outgoing, has a more active social life, etc., because that's what he remembered from his own experience. But after a while there was clear snidiness there which it was impossible not to hear. My son has always had a strong protective streak sense of fairness, and in spite of their differences and the late age they were introduced, he and Ben are very close, so Jason's reaction to Bob's remarks favoring him was to take Ben's side. He stopped going to games with Bob and generally liking him, and for a while became openly hostile on Ben's behalf. That stopped once he and Bob had a major argument. Jason backed down at that point because, he told me, he realized that if he kept making himself unpleasant, Bob and I might break up, in which case Ben would have to leave too. Since then, with a few exceptions, he has been coldly civil. Meanwhile, Bob has come to believe Ben is gay based on what I consider spurious evidence, not that it matters to me whether he is or not. He wanted to send him to a military-type reform school, and when I vetoed that, his behavior towards Ben has escalated to a subtle kind of downright nastiness. Needless to say, all of the above strained Bob's and my relationship to breaking point and then broke it. Seeing his ongoing behavior towards a child who needs him, I can no longer look at him with anything but disgust. The thought of him touching me makes my skin crawl and I desperately want him out of my house. We're not married and it's still in my soul name, thank God, but now I have the same problem Jason was worried about. If I end the relationship and kick Bob out, Ben will have to go too, since legally I have no tie to him whatever. He's 15 now and although he has borne everything by stoically ignoring Bob, I can't in good conscience let that man be solely responsible for him. For what it's worth, I have always tried to stick up for him and get Bob to see that there are many types of boy in the world and all of them are equally okay. Not to mention, I don't think Jason would ever forgive me if I did. I would happily take guardianship of Ben if I could, even if Bob made no financial contribution at all. We could manage if we cut back on luxuries. My concern is that I am far from sure Bob would agree. However he personally feels about Ben is still his flesh and blood and Bob feels strongly about that. To be honest, I think it's part of the reason he resents Ben so much. Ben is the last of the line and not turning out how Bob thinks his family should be represented. If I were to start a conversation along those lines and Bob refused to allow Ben to stay, it would be incredibly difficult to roll back. The idea of having to continue to play his supportive wife to stop him leaving of his own accord for another 2.5 years, till Ben turns 18, sounds like a nightmare, but the alternative is worse. What is the best way to manage and get through this? TLDR, partner has shown himself to be abusive and homophobic towards his nephew. I want to leave him, but if I do he will likely take his nephew with him. What do I do? Relevant comments. Commenter 1. So you've gotten good advice here. Just to reiterate, talk to Ben. Tell him that he always has a home with you, and that you're not going to do anything which will make his home situation unstable. Tell him you love him and appreciate him for who he is, and that you know things are fraught. I know you don't particularly think Ben is gay, but I think you should talk to him in a way that makes clear that you don't care, without saying as much. Talk to a lawyer. Find out how, if you kick Bob out, Ben can stay. How old does he have to be to make that choice? You want to avoid a legal fight, but it's good to know what the law is. Talk to your son. Tell him you appreciate him standing up for Ben to Bob. Tell him that you agree that Bob is behaving unacceptably. Tell him that you're trying to figure out a way to keep Ben safe from Bob, and that you will never take Bob's side over him and Ben. Tell him you recognize that the current situation with Bob is unhealthy for everyone, and that you're actively trying to figure out a way to resolve it while protecting Ben. Don't tell Bob any of this. Have all these conversations quietly until you're ready to take action because you've had the discussion with a lawyer. Furthermore, once you're ready to take action, talk to Ben and Jason before you tell Bob. Reply. Thank you very much for saying this. I must admit in all of this I have gone from trying to smooth things between them and Bob to trying to find a way out for all of us, and have not prioritized communicating with the boys as much as I could have. I am going to try to get some alone time with each of them this weekend to at least reassure them that I see what's happening and value them. Commenter 2. Talk to Bob and let him know you want to legally adopt Ben. Probably wise not to mention it's as breakup custody insurance. Just say that you've really come to see him as family, and both boys as your sons, and you want to make it official. If Bob agrees, you'll have some play for custody. Also, you aren't morally obligated to be in a sexual relationship with someone who you dislike to stay in Ben's life. That's not a fair requirement. I know you are worried the boys will hate or be mad at you, including your son Jason. But I'd talk to Jason honestly one-on-one if when you do break up with Bob. Tell him that you love Ben and want to look out for him and stay in his life as much as you can, and you've been staying in the relationship for a while for that reason, but you've reached the point where you just can't keep being with a man who you don't see as a good person. I would hope that Jason, who you say is naturally protective, will understand and be protective of you, his own mother, if you show him your feelings, good intentions, rather than condemn you for not prostituting yourself. I very much doubt your son would expect that of you. None of us expect that of you. As for Ben, if you break up and Bob won't let you have any custody, talk to Ben about it. Tell him you love him, you see him as a son, and the way Bob treats him is wrong, and why you don't respect Bob. Tell Ben that he has done nothing wrong, and you very much want to stay a part of his life, and you will try to as much as Bob allows, but current situation is, blah. You'll be talking to a lawyer. And that if nothing else Ben should know that he's always welcome to move back in the minute he turns 18. Reply, thank you for saying that. You are right, I know Jason would understand if I explained to him. I think my real problem is that if something happened to Ben I would have a hard time forgiving myself. At the moment I'm hoping it won't come to either of those situations. The comments here have given me some hope and I am going to speak to a lawyer about our options. Edit, thank you all so much for your support, advice and kind words. Your comments have given me a lot to think about, and I will be making contact with a family lawyer shortly. Update. Hi again everyone. I posted about my family problem about a month ago and was bowled over by the amount of kind and extremely helpful comments I got. Someone requested an update, so I'm posting now to tell you what's happened since. To be honest, it's also to unburden myself. The boys are really sweet but I obviously can't talk to them about these things and there aren't a lot of people in my life I feel comfortable sharing all the details with. I suppose I'm embarrassed. The week after my original post, I met with a family lawyer I know to go over options. I actually wrote down the legal suggestions posted here to discuss with her, but unfortunately, after going over each and several others in detail, we had to conclude that for each one, while it might technically be feasible, it would either take too long to be practical, or require things from Bob or from Ben which for various reasons were not ideal. Following the meeting, I was mulling things over and decided to take a long hard look at our finances to see what might be affordable as a compromise, such as perhaps sending Ben to a good boarding school and pay tuition up front, so that if I then left Bob it would be easier and cheaper for him to leave Ben there rather than move him to a different school. Anyway, I went over our financial records with a fine-toothed comb, and that's when I discovered Bob was cheating on me, and had been for the entirety of our relationship. It turns out that, prior to Ben's parents' death, Bob had been about to move in with another woman. This woman didn't want kids, so when Bob was suddenly faced with taking custody of Ben or seeing him placed in foster care, she made it clear she would not be involved. For the record, I can't say I blame her, I love my boys with all my heart. But asking someone who never wanted kids to parent a bereaved 11-year-old she has never met is not in anyone's best interests in my opinion. When I confronted him about the affair, he didn't even attempt to deny it. He seemed ashamed, good, and just asked what happened next, so I told him that next he was going to get his stuff and get out of my house. But first ask Ben if he wants to go or stay, because it wouldn't be fair to disrupt the poor kid's life any further. Ben quickly said he preferred to stay, and Bob seemed frankly relieved. He moved out that weekend and I haven't seen him since. We've been in touch by text to discuss financial arrangements, though, and last week he sent me money to cover Ben's basic expenses, nothing like as much as child support, but under the circumstances I'll take it and be glad. From his attitude I take it that he's seeing this as a long-term thing. But even he doesn't, according to the family lawyer, his leaving Ben with me even for a while, along with Ben's age and the fact that Bob is his guardian rather than his father, would make it easier to build a case for Ben to stay even if Bob does try to fight it. The lawyer is confident that such a battle could be won, or at least dragged out till Ben is 18 and it doesn't matter anymore. So that, as you can imagine, has been an enormous relief. That makes it that much harder to admit that finding out about Bob has still hit me hard. The fact is that, even though I was absolutely done with him and wanted him out, there was a time I truly believed he wanted to be with me and that we could build a life together. I knew our relationship wasn't a romance for the ages or anything like that, but it was by far the best I'd had since before my son was born and I really thought we cared for and valued one another. Now I realized that all he ever wanted from me was a mother for Ben. He as good as admitted it, and in retrospect it makes complete sense. That's why he never wanted to get married or buy into my house even though I offered. Though now of course I am grateful, because he wanted to make it as easy as possible to split from me once Ben was old enough to no longer require my services. I think it might even explain why he was so hard on Ben and grasping at straws for a reason to send him away. I never expected it of him based on what else I knew or I never would have been with him, but if he was blaming Ben for getting in the way of his life and simultaneously feeling guilty for, that could turn a mild-mannered person mean I think. Maybe he even thought if Ben was away most of the time the other woman would be willing to compromise for a few years. I don't know. I've even been wondering whether he decided to pursue me before we'd even met. The boys met first through an extracurricular where they became friends. It's possible that Jason mentioned my being single in passing, allowing Bob to identify me as potentially suitable before we ever met. I'm sorry this is such a mopey post. I truly am grateful for the way things worked out. I think it's the best possible solution for everyone under the circumstances, and not one I could have achieved without Bob's help. And the boys have been wonderful. they didn't know I was trying to get Bob out anyway, so they've been treating me very gently, or as gently as you can expect teenage boys to be, anyway, and trying to pretend they aren't thrilled Bob is gone when I'm in the room. I'm glad of that, to be honest. I am so grateful he's gone and Ben is still safe here with us. I just need a bit of time to really remember it, I think. TLDR, it turns out Bob has been cheating on me most likely for the entire duration of our relationship. He's moved out and left Ben with me. Stories number 18. Wibta, if I extended my stay at my parents' house and missed my wife's cousin's wedding. My wife and I are on vacation in my native country. I lived here until I was 18 when I moved to Canada. My wife was born Canadian but her parents moved from the same country I did. We have a 1-year-old daughter too. My parents still live in my native country. My parents and her relatives live in different parts of the country. So we landed at her relatives, I spent a day there, said my goodbyes to my wife and daughter and flew to my parents. The plan was that I would spend 2 weeks at my parents', then fly to my wife's for 3 days, attend her cousin's wedding with her, we would all fly back to my parents for a few days, my parents got to see my daughter then fly back to Canada. A couple of days ago, my relatives had decided to arrange a hangout for the entire family at the beach, huts booked and all. Some other relatives of mine that live in other countries are also here at the time, so it's supposed to be a good family gathering. But it's scheduled for the day of my wife's cousin's wedding. A couple of my uncles called me to ask me to change my plans so I could attend, and my parents want me to be there too. I thought of changing my flight to later, so I'd be going after the wedding for just a day, and then coming back with my wife and daughter. I told my wife about this, and I was pretty sure she'd be on board, because even though she's very close to her cousin, I don't know her at all. However, she got really upset, saying we had a plan, that she wanted me to be there at the wedding with her, that she wanted good photos of our family. I tried to explain that it would mean a lot to my family if I could make it, that they don't make these plans often, and the wedding is all her relatives, a lot of whom don't know me. She got really upset, wouldn't hear of it, and said I need to be there. We ended the call. Wibta, if I extended my stay and missed her cousin's wedding whom I don't know because my relatives have planned a grand gathering and would like me here. Sum of comments. Top commenter, sorry, YWBTA. You asked her input, she gave it. Yes, it would mean a lot to your relatives if you stayed, but apparently it would mean a lot to your wife if you came to the wedding. It may sound unfair, but ultimately, it's more in your interest to make her happy, than to make some relatives happy. You did have a plan. Did you not inform your relatives ahead of time that you would be there, and when? Sounds like this all could have been planned better. Reply, my relatives, other than my parents OFC, didn't know I was going to be gone for a few days to be with my wife. And they've now booked everything, and some of my extended relatives are also here on those days whom I never get to see. Commenter, YTA, do you not parent your daughter at all? She's 1 and you want to send your wife alone to a wedding with a toddler. That's just crazy. Reply, downvoted, of course I parent her too. My wife's parents have also flown to attend the wedding and they're there with her too. She's not alone there. Commenter, YTA. Your wife has already been solo parenting for 2 weeks. Now you want her to go to a wedding, toddler in tow, without your assistance so that you can further extend your vacation. When does your wife get a vacation without your child? Reply, downvoted, there was no way around it, we had to be at different places, and of course my 1-year-old daughter had to be with her mother. Commenter, YTA. Why is your family more important than hers? Reply, downvoted, it's not about more important, just that I don't know a lot of her family and a lot of them don't know me since we live in Canada. I'm not asking her to abandon the wedding, I'm just trying to say that I wouldn't be missed at the wedding as much as I would be at the family gathering. Mini update in comments. After my conversation with my wife, I realized I had to go because she was adamant about it. I came on here to know if I had a leg to stand on, because it really would mean a lot to my folks if I could stay, so I wanted to know if there was non-AH way for me to do that and maybe persuade my wife, but apparently not. I plan on going, I let her know, and apologized for the stress. OOP replies to some more comments. Commenter, please don't sulk at the wedding and make her feel guilty about keeping you to your word. This is supposed to be an enjoyable event where she can introduce you and your child to her family. Reply, no, of course not. I'm looking forward to going and seeing her and my daughter again. I was being unreasonable, I'd never want to embarrass her. She told me just now that she's looking forward to having our family pictures taken, and there's a couple's dinner we're supposed to have with her cousin and the groom, so this honestly should never have been negotiable on my end. Commenter, this sounds so horrible and I know you've done some self-reflection but you might need a bit more. You're basically saying that your parents' opinions matter more than your wife's. Like you were fine with your wife being unhappy, and were going to persuade her down and agreeing with you, so you didn't have to be uncomfortable with telling your parents no. Reply, when I called her I really thought she wouldn't have a problem with it. When she did I struggled with why because I saw my role in the wedding to be minimal seeing as I didn't know anyone. But that shouldn't have mattered, her wanting me there should have been enough. I got caught up in the festivities regarding the gathering. I was being selfish, I apologized to her. Update post. I had received a justifiably harsh response to my last post and I can't thank everyone enough for that. I realized I was being a selfish and I went to attend the wedding. I had a really good time there. It felt really good to see my wife and daughter after 2 weeks. I was prepared to apologize to my wife's parents too for my reluctance, but fortunately she hadn't told them I was considering not coming during the few hours when I was undecided. I had to meet and greet a lot of people. My wife was the first amongst her cousins to get married, so I guess I'm the first outsider to become a part of the family, so I spent a lot of time talking to her relatives, and got to know a few of them too. She's very close to her cousin, so she was basically what our equivalent of maid of honor is. She had a lot of stuff to deal with and I was making myself of use by keeping our daughter preoccupied. They had planned a lot of things, family pictures, couples dinner with the bride and groom, and I was honestly in awe of the planning that went into it. I've been feeling pretty ashamed of how much trouble I would have caused her had I not gone. She asked me a few times if I enjoyed myself, which would make me feel even worse about it. My parents were disappointed about me not attending the family gathering and it sounds like it was fun, but I've realized nothing is worth not being there for my wife and daughter. Thank you all for the verdict, I needed it. OOP's only update comment. Commenter, have you addressed yet with your family how hurtful it is that they picked one of the few days you weren't available and expected you to change plans last minute, because that really needs to be done. It's shitty AF that they had the audacity to ask you to cancel on your wife like that. Reply, it wasn't my parents who arranged it, it was a couple of my uncles. And I think they only knew when I was in the country till, they didn't know about my plans to go to her, or at least which dates I'd be gone for. And yes, changing plans should never have been a discussion. I think my parents were just asking me to cancel because they wanted me to meet some relatives whom I haven't seen in ages, if ever. Maybe I didn't impress upon them enough how important this was for my wife. Editor's note, I chose this one because I saw a few commenters asking whether or not there are any more YTA posts the other day. While NTA posts are still the most common, some YTA posts do still pop up. Stories number 19. Aita for telling my mom that she's the cause of all my brother's problems. I, 33F, have a sister, 30F, and a little brother, 17M. My mom, single mother of parents divorced while she was pregnant with my brother, was a wonderful mother to both me and my sister. However, she switched up incredibly while raising my brother so much to the point that I offered to raise my brother instead. So my brother, who is now a junior in high school, has self-esteem issues especially related to how he looks ways. He was a chubby baby and my mom used to say negative things to him all the time, which I guess kind of ruined his self-esteem. My sister and I always called him cute, handsome, etc., but obviously our mother's words had a bigger effect on him. To put it in perspective for you guys, he is 6 feet 1 inch, underweight, objectively a good-looking kid, yet still finds himself ugly and or fat. I, a 5 feet 8 inches woman, weigh more than him and am at a healthy weight. Anyways, despite everything, he's still a cheerful and talkative kid who really does love our mother, and this makes me 10x angrier. Now on to the problem. I made a mess in the kitchen yesterday while doing a little baking and accidentally fell asleep on the couch due to exhaustion and forgot to clean up. My mom saw the mess and started screaming at my brother, and my brother said that he'd clean it up and that he was sorry. He basically admitted to doing something he didn't do, and when I found out, I immediately told my mom it was my fault, but she said that it was fine. I asked her to apologize to him, but she said that he was a man and that she doesn't need to. I got mad and told her that if she kept this up then her son will end up doing something drastic. She said that she wasn't doing anything, and I said something along the lines of, seriously? You're literally the cause of all his problems. I also called her a terrible mother. She got mad. She said, I didn't go through all this shit for my own daughter to take a boy's side of her own mother's. She made a lot of gender-based comments like, you're a girl, you should take my side, and he's a boy, he deserves it, etc. Then she went to her room and slept. Honestly, I'm just confused now. Also, while I don't regret standing up for my brother, I feel like maybe I shouldn't have blamed her for all his issues since it's a pretty big accusation and she's obviously hurt. I'm thinking I should have been more mature. Plus she wasn't a bad mother to me or my sister, so maybe that was uncalled for too. But yeah, Ida for blaming my mother for all of my brother's problems. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. She sounds misandrist AF. Does he happen to look like his father? NTA at all. I would talk with your bro and try to be his shoulder. Your mom is completely fucking him up and it may be too late to undo all her damage. Edit, I'm not implying he's beyond hope of healing, just that it's going to leave scars. So the quicker you help him start healing, the better. Reply, we're actually mixed, our dad is East Asian, mom is white, and he looks more Asian than my sister and I, so yes, he does look more like our dad in a way. The fact that it might be too late, that's what I'm terrified about, sad face. I'll still try and be his shoulder though. Thanks. Commenter 2, it's pretty obvious she is taking out her anger at your father on him. It's so sad. The same thing happened to my little cousin after his mother's acrimonious divorce. Just be there for him as much as you can and try as much as possible to help him understand that none of this is his fault and there is nothing wrong with him. Feel free to throw your mother under the bus to get this through to him. If possible, help him get out of the house as soon as he is old enough and away from her abuse. Commenter 3, NTA. But your mom is TA for being sexiest. Can't your brother move in with his dad? Reply, dad lives in his home country and traveling is a bit of a no can do due to you know what. My sister and I live with our mom plus brother because you know she's older and we're also concerned about our brother so we don't have our own places. We're unfortunately low on money as well. However, I can try and talk to my dad about what's going on, but he's remarried and is very busy these days, so I don't really know. Update. So nobody really asked for an update, but I'm a bit bored and though, why not? First off, I'd like to say that after reading your replies, I think the reason why mom is horrible towards my brother is a mix of him looking like my dad and him being a boy. But I don't know for sure. Now for the update. A bit after I made the post, I went to talk to my brother who was in his room. He was fine, but when I asked him to tell me how he felt about, well, everything, he broke down. My heart broke into a million pieces. At that moment I knew that he couldn't stay with our mother anymore. So, I called my boyfriend of 5 years and asked him if my brother and I could move in for a bit. He has the space and my brother gets along with him, so he agreed. My mom didn't give a shit. She didn't even say goodbye to him. She asked me if I could stay but completely ignored my brother's presence. I tried my hardest to stay calm and not shout at her for it, but the way she was acting was so mean. According to my sister, my mother still makes mean comments about my brother even though he's not there, so staying calm is really hard right now. Anyways, I called my dad as well and basically told him everything. He was a bit angry at first because nobody told him this before and he wouldn't have left any of us in a different country had he known. But he calmed down and talked to my brother for like over an hour, and by the time he hung up my brother had tears of joy and relief in his eyes. It's still unclear whether my dad will be visiting or if my brother will be moving or how we're going to proceed from now on due to you know what, but I can assure you that my mother won't be able to say anything to my brother again. Unfortunately, I am unable to put my brother into therapy because I don't have a lot of money on me, but I will try and talk to one of my friends who is pretty knowledgeable in the mental health department and see if I can help my brother. Thanks to everyone who gave their 2 cents. Edit. Jesus. Thank you all so much for the advice, information, awards, seriously whoa, kindness and yeah everything. I've taken everything into consideration and have tried to respond to as many replies as I can. There's too many. I'm going to do some research and will look into getting some help for my brother. I'd also like to say that if you're went through something similar, I'm rooting for you and I know many of you may not be religious, but I am keeping all of you in my prayers. Seriously, thanks so much for everything and I hope you all have a wonderful day night. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Hey, I'm happy that you got him out of the toxic environment. If you are in the USA you can apply for medical assistance since your brother has no income, and depending on your age you might be able to apply for assistance or even get child support from your so-called mom. Especially if she is getting child support from your father. Reply, I am actually in the USA so I'll see what I can do, thanks. Commenter 2. A lot of us, abused as kids, struggle because Noon stood up for us, ever. Your brother will have a long way to go and undoubtedly it messed him up, but you have made sure that's one less point on the long list of trauma abuse can create. Reply, I'm very sorry about your situation, sad face. I can't do much but I hope you will find peace. I don't know if you're religious but I'll keep you and every other person who hasn't been able to get out of an abusive situation in my prayers. Thank you. Commenter 3. You're a good sister. Your brother is lucky to have you in his life. Reply, I am more lucky to have that kid in my life. He doesn't know this but he helped me a lot when we were younger. I remember when he was 8. And I was maybe 23. 24. I broke up with this guy and was a huge mess, but he in his little superhero costume that I had bought him for his birthday earlier said that I don't need to be sad anymore because I had him and that he would rescue me every time I was down. I sobbed like a baby. I'm rambling but yeah, I am way luckier to have that kid in my life. Thank you so much for the kind words though. Stories number 20. My 26M girlfriend, 24F, of 2 years always includes poetry in cards she gives me. I'm not into it. I'll start by saying I love my girlfriend. I think she's beautiful, intelligent, and very caring. We get along together extremely well. We moved in together after only 2 months but have never had any major fights. We just work. It's a great feeling, which makes me realize that this gripe is minor, so I don't know how to address it. Every card I have ever received from my girlfriend, birthdays, anniversaries, Valentine's Day etc., has included poetry. On one side she'll write something short, but sweet and thoughtful, which I like. On the other side, she'll write a few lines from a poem or other classical literature. I get that she is a librarian and literature is something she's studied extensively and cares about. Frankly, it leaves me cold. I was a STEM major and work in a scientific field now, and classical literature, especially poetry, do not interest me in the slightest. I figured she would pick up eventually that I don't care about the fancy words and much prefer her own, but my birthday recently rolled around and there was poetry in the card. She even made a point of repeating the passage to me. I asked her why she always felt the need to use someone else's words, but she just replied that the words were beautiful and she felt a connection to them and us. I don't know how to broach this topic without hurting her feelings. I would be fine if she just signed the card, or no card at all. I love this girl, but I'm tired of the poems. TLDR, how do I tell my girlfriend to leave the poetic craps off when she writes cards? Consensus, commenters tell him to let it go and stop being a dick. OOP fights in the comments that he just isn't into poetry. Notable comments. Commenter 1. It makes me sad to think of your girlfriend, hand-picking lines out of something she loves, hoping it will be appreciated as an expression of her feelings for you. And you saying, hey, babe, can you stop with the poetry thing? I'm not into it. Commenter 2. Is this serious? Who cares if you don't like it? It's thoughtful and means a lot to her. Boo-hoo that you waste 3 seconds of your life reading some poetry. Commenter 3. Wow, that's so ridiculous. She is expressing love for you with something near and dear to her heart. Poetry clearly means a lot to her and you're complaining because it isn't your thing. If you say something to her it will be a really petty move. Commenter 4. I was a STEM major. You're not breaking any stereotypes here, buddy. Update. When I posted last, I was pretty defensive because I did not expect everyone to call me an asshole. But after I slept on it and swallowed my pride, I realized what a jerk I was being. I was so caught up on not valuing poetry that I didn't understand I would be saying I don't value her expression of love. I thought about how if I were in her shoes it would hurt me to hear that. So thanks for the reality check. It prevented a major blunder on my part. On to the update. While my girlfriend was out of town for the weekend to visit her sister, I took a trip to the library. I asked her colleague to help me find some mushy love poetry to woo her with. I spent 2 hours reading poems. I tried the stuff with more flowery language, but I had trouble grasping a lot of it. It was pretty frustrating. I ended up going with more straightforward language which worked out well when I read it to her on our anniversary. She cried, I almost cried, it was more emotional than I anticipated. She said just reading it to her was the best present I've ever given her. It was a great moment. Edit, I just realized the way I wrote this makes it seem like I wrote a poem. I'm definitely not there yet. I just copied one from a book. TLDR, stopped being an asshole and wooed my lady with fancy talk. Comments by OOP, I won the award for obtuse douche canoe, no doubt about that. I can be stubborn and an idiot, but I love this woman and hearing that I would be hurting her was a wake-up call. There was some comment about my girlfriend carefully picking out poetry and me dismissing it. I didn't respond to it, probably because it hit home. I ended up picking I Carry Your Heart With Me, I Carry It In, by E. Cummings. I don't really get the punctuation and structure of it, but the words make sense to me. The Shakespeare stuff did not come as easy. Poetry is work. I liked this one, but did not use it because of the gender difference. It is so sweet though. To my dear and loving husband, by in Bradstreet, if ever two were one, then surely we. If ever man were loved by wife, then thee. If ever wife was happy in a man, compare with me, ye women, if you can. I prize thy love more than whole mines of gold, or all the riches that the east doth hold. My love is such that rivers cannot quench, nor aught but love from thee give recompense. Thy love is such I can no way repay, the heavens reward thee manifold, I pray. Then while we live, in love let's so persever, that when we live no more, we may live ever. I think I was pretty full on douche. Thank God I never actually mentioned it to my girlfriend. Stories number 21. Aita for hating my engagement ring. I, 29F, got engaged to my fiancé, 30M, after 2 years of dating and 15 years of knowing each other. He is super sweet, kind, supportive and very family oriented. His parents love me and my parents love him. There was absolutely no drama in our relationship until now. I knew that he had been looking to settle down and be married, and he knew I was too. We just kind of have always known, even for those 15 years, that this was gonna happen. Hard to fight the gut feeling. Because we were talking so much about getting married, he wanted to take me engagement ring browsing so that he could see what styles I liked and didn't like. When we went, I suggested we go to an outlet jewelry shop because I know he wouldn't want to spend a fortune on it, and I didn't want anything super expensive or extravagant either. The one and only rule I told him was that I only wanted traditional diamonds. No offense to those who like more colorful rings, but I prefer to be a little more traditional. I put on many rings that all were very similar, just one simple diamond and a strap. I tried to try on ones that were no more than $1,000. I thought that was generally reasonable. Months later he proposes and I start to cry from the joy, and after I say yes he opens the box. And in the box was a small greenish-brownish color diamond with extremely tiny traditional diamonds around it. I was disappointed, but put on a big fake smile and tried to erase it from my mind so I could let the excitement of the moment continue. After about maybe 30 minutes, I went ahead and asked about the ring. I asked what kind of diamond it was, and he said it was called a moss diamond, and he chose it for me because turquoise was my favorite color and it was the closest he could find. I wanted to say, what about my one rule of traditional diamond only, but I also didn't want to be ungrateful, so I didn't ask. I asked him if he had gotten it at the outlet shop we went to, and he said he had gotten it off Etsy. My MOH later told me that Etsy made good quality jewelry, so that perked me up a bit. I decided to just kind of let it be and accept the ring and learn to love and attach memories to it. Getting to the drama, this whole process has kind of made me realize how cheap he is. I don't mind when someone knows how to stretch a dollar, but to me there's a difference between frugal and cheap. When I look back at all our dates, his gifts and everything, it kind of clicked in me that all of them had either been cheap or a free gift from a friend that he decided to give to me. The gifts he has given to me during our relationship were just because he found them for free or someone sold it for an extremely cheap price. For one of my birthdays he ended up getting us tickets to this massive local ball and getting us ballroom dancing classes before the ball started. I showed no interest in ballroom dancing, but I thought it was a fun idea to go, and we had a generally good time. I thanked him and asked him how he found out about this. He told me originally his friend was going to go with his girlfriend, but couldn't make it, so they gave us the tickets. So basically the ball, our food, our drinks, our dance lesson, and even my corsage was all free. And there's more cheap and free stories where that came from. And when I look back at things, whenever we did do something extravagant it was always on my dime. He is not rich, but he is certainly not poor. He makes pretty decent money. The thing that I think made me finally break was our Valentine's Day plans. He had told me he was going to take me to the biggest landmark of our city, which is expensive to just even set foot in, and they had a restaurant inside that was ridiculously expensive. I was amazed and even said, "Are you sure? You know that place is expensive, right?" He said that he knew it was one of my bucket list things to do and said I deserved it. It meant so much to me that he was willing to do this, and I was so excited. A few days later I found that there was gonna be a wedding convention in our town. I bought our tickets $15 each plus one for my mom and maid of honor. I told him about it and he said, "Great. It's better to spend our money there than on that restaurant." I was so confused. I told him they weren't on the same day, in fact they were a week apart, and that I already had bought the tickets and he didn't need to buy anything there, so he wouldn't have to worry about spending any money at the convention. He said, "No, it's better to save our money, so let's not go to the landmark restaurant." My mind was blown. I couldn't believe he canceled my dream plans over something that had absolutely nothing to do with the plans. I talked to my MOH about it and she said she has always noticed he was a bit cheap. On to the ring now. I never looked up my ring on Etsy to try to find it or asked for the price because I thought it was rude to look up or ask. But because of all this craziness I decided to go on Etsy and find my ring. There were surprisingly many moss diamond rings to look through, but I eventually found it. The ring was being sold for $28. Honestly, my heart kinda broke. I started saying stupid dramatic things in my head like, am I only worth $28? I want to confront him about this, but I might be a AH here for just letting this get to me. Ick. Whipta for confronting him about this. Consensus, NTA. Commenters tell her to break up with him. Notable comments. Commenter 1. I'm going to repeat here what my therapist years ago told me when I was considering divorcing my husband. We had been in marriage counseling for a while and it was going nowhere fast. I already had a foot out the door but had decided to give it a try for the sake of my young children, but I was pretty much over it. So one day I was having a session with her and she looked me right in the eye and told me that my husband was not a diamond in the rough, that he was a piece of coal. And that is why I have to say to you. He's not worth it. He doesn't bring anything to the table, he doesn't care what you want. Cheapness is the way he lives his life, and unfortunately it's been my experience that men that are cheap monetarily are also cheap emotionally. They just don't give much. Commenter 2, it's not about the ring. It's about the fact that he doesn't value you. I don't mean monetarily. I mean he didn't listen when you said traditional diamond only. He promised an experience and then reneged on it for basically no reason. He will never, ever put you first. If you have kids, what you're feeling now, they'll feel at every birthday, holiday, and growth spurt as he begrudgingly pays the absolute minimum or just avoids getting them whatever they need. My mom used to buy shoes that were 2 sizes too big and then not replace them until they were at least 2 sizes too small. Totally jacked up our feet, but she was all about the money, as in not wasting any of it on kids. Is this the life you want? Because he won't change. Commenter 3, hell with confronting him. You just need to break up with him. It's one thing to be frugal. It's totally another to be so tight you squeak when you walk. This guy is such a tightwad you would be able to get more blood from a turnip than actually getting anything meaningful from him. And don't get me wrong, I understand full and well that the meaning behind the gift is more important than the price. But he is so tight I am surprised he can even poop. And this how the rest of your life will be with him. Plans that might be a little extravagant will be changed because he found something cheaper or even better, free of cost. He doesn't take any of your considerations to heed, the ring, the dinner, the dates. Second owned, hand-me-downs, and so on. No, run from this guy. Commenter 5, he's doing the absolute bare minimum, is that enough for you? Good lord babe, the ring isn't the part of your story that bothers me the most, though it's really bad, $28 what the actual hell. It's the Valentine's Day thing. That is just crushing. I'm so sorry he is that disrespectful. Also, a moss diamond looks nothing like turquoise. Edit, so, how sure are you that it's a diamond? Because I'm not seeing that moss diamond is a thing. Moss agate is. And it's fragile. Not suited at all to be in a ring for long-term wear. And that is what I am seeing in search results for moss diamond. Just moss agates with some small diamonds. Please take it to a jeweler and have the stone checked to see what it is. Because I'm not seeing any moss diamond stones on Etsy, but loads of moss agate rings with diamonds also. Honey, please don't let him try to flimflam you. If he got you an agate and called it a diamond, he's gotta go. That's beyond disrespectful. Edit 2, the fact that I repeated myself accidentally should tell you how serious and worried I am, lol. Do not fuck around, double check this man's work. Update, I'll go ahead and answer some of y'all's questions and comments. No, my finger has not turned green yet, surprisingly lol. Believe me though, I do check once in a while. Here's a bit of info on his financial life and history. He grew up as one of 7 siblings with parents who financially struggled to get by. He definitely grew up learning how to stretch a dollar. Currently, even though I know he can afford a lot more, he rents a cheap studio apartment in a sketchy part of town where when I come to visit, he will come down and walk me from my car to his room for safety. His apartment has basically no decorations outside of old comic book posters. All his furniture and household appliances etc. I can guarantee are all second-hand or bought from Goodwill. He almost never eats out, and when he does it's always a small meal from Jack in the Box where he is willing to spring for a milkshake. In terms of what he does with all his money that he does not spend, I'm not sure. I never asked cause I was thought that it was rude to ask people where they put their money, but now that we're engaged I guess I have every right to ask where it goes to lol. Here's a bit on my financial life and history. I grew up an only child with parents who owned a small business who never had to struggle for money. We were not rich, but I would call us upper middle class. If I needed something expensive for a project or for school it was easy for my parents to get it. I was not spoiled though. There were plenty of times my parents would tell me no, and would only buy expensive things for me if I really needed them. As an adult I make a pretty good living. I did not go to college, so thankfully I'm in no debt. I have career in the field I always wanted to be in and I'm hoping that soon it will be growing even bigger. I don't think I make more than my fiancé though, I could be wrong. I currently live in an apartment complex in a safe part of town and decorate my apartment nicely. All my decorations though were not expensive. I do eat out probably a little more than I should, but it's not like I go to Cheesecake Factory every day. It's more like I'll get Chick-fil-A or Chipotle or get a pre-made meal from Target every other day on my way to work. Here's some more important info that maybe I should have mentioned. For those of you who are saying he's a bad or terrible guy, he's really not. He's literally one of the sweetest guys you will ever meet and honestly. He's pretty innocent. He is lightly on the spectrum and doesn't always know how to process emotion or understand why what he said was inappropriate. He also can't always take a hint and doesn't always know whether someone is joking around or being serious. Oftentimes when I make a joke, I make it obvious so he understands. Because of his being on the spectrum, he has a therapist that he has been going to ever since he was a kid. He apparently used to see her every month, but now as an adult he goes once or twice a year. My MOH had a fantastic idea and said I should book an appointment with my fiancé and his therapist to talk about this. I told my fiancé that it might be a great idea to talk about our relationship with her so we can learn how best to communicate as a future married couple. He said that was a great idea and we are gonna book an appointment soon. Notable comments. Commenter 1. If you are not comfortable talking about both your finances to the person you are engaged to, you are not ready to marry one another. This is going to be a huge issue in your marriage, even more so than such a ridiculously cheap ring. Commenter 2. Oh dear, this makes your match sound even worse. There is a great disparity between your attitudes toward financial decisions here. He has the money to spend, but chooses not to. I know from experience that he won't be able to tell why, beyond, but this is fine, it works and it's what I need, why spend more? Whereas you have grown up with the idea of buying what you need, and that new is not a bad thing, and if you want it, can afford it, and it's reasonable, why not? Those two attitudes are going to clash, and I'm sorry to say that every financial decision is going to be a battle. It's not looking good for a long-term relationship. Commenter 3. After having read your original post and now this post, I gotta say, girl, have some self-respect, you're engaged to a cheap ass, and quite frankly, he wasn't even willing to spend $100 on your engagement ring. Meanwhile you've gotten him a $100 gift card to a subscription service. Have some self-respect and thank goodness you'll be going together to a therapist, but maybe consider finding one that won't be biased to his side. Update 2. Thank you to all of y'all for helping me realize I'm not crazy for feeling this way. I was always told to suck it up and be thankful for what life gives you, so to hear all of y'all's explanations of why what I'm feeling is valid made me more confident to take action about this. I know a lot of y'all said to dump him, but I wanted to give him a chance. I wanted to make sure I went about this the best way I could, and if any of y'all disagree about my method, but I talked to his mom about it. Her and I are getting really close. She is so sweet to me and has even drove to pick me up and help me when I was having car trouble. I even hung out with her without my fiancé once. She let me borrow a jacket recently when I was stupid enough to forget one, and so I used giving back the jacket as an excuse to come visit and talk. I dropped off the jacket and she asked if I wanted to come in a visit, and of course I said yes. We talked for about an hour and finally I had the guts to talk about it. I told her I felt like a piece of garbage for hating the Mossagot ring and asked her whether she thinks I'm valid in me feelings or not. This woman got passionate. She immediately said that I was very in the right and that when he showed her and his sister the ring, they apparently said, "Why did you choose this stone? I don't think this is what OP wants." He apparently said OP loves turquoise so she'll love this. And it's not a stone, it's a diamond. His mom said she knew he was wrong. She even went on this passionate talk about why people traditionally choose diamonds over any other stone and jewel for engagement rings. She told me that people choose diamonds because they are the strongest stone in the world and can cut through and survive anything, so a marriage should be as strong and everlasting as a diamond. I told her that made me want a diamond even more, lol. I asked her how I should talk to him about this. She said to be very honest with him before it's too late and that he loves to hear the meaning behind things. She said if I tell him the things she told me about the meaning behind choosing a diamond he'll understand even more. I was so thankful I talked to her. A couple of days later I went to hang out with him at his place. I was so hesitant to talk about it, but when I finally got up the nerve to talk about it I said, "I'd like to have a serious conversation with you. And I hope you'll understand where I'm coming from and listen." I told him about how I didn't understand why we went ring browsing in 3 stores only for him to buy a ring that was the opposite of what I said I wanted. I told him about how I hated the ring because to me it symbolized his cheapness and that he didn't listen. I told him I was incredibly disappointed and asked him to explain. He listened very well and let me talk as long as I needed. He told me he had already bought that ring 1 week before we went ring browsing and that he took me out just to find out my ring size and to appease my mind. My flubbers were gassed. I told him that made no sense, and if he had already bought the ring, besides finding my size, all that browsing was completely pointless and wasteful of my time and makes me feel even worse. He didn't understand why it was ridiculous. Because of his type of autism, sometimes I have to explain why people feel the way they do. So I gave him a thorough explanation as to why what he did was insulting, and it clicked, and I could tell he felt like an a-hole. Apologized and said he didn't think about that. He said he even felt really embarrassed for what he got me and felt guilty, but because I never said anything, he thought it was fine. I told him about how I looked up the ring and that I was extra insulted it was $28 and he immediately got defensive and told me that wasn't true and that he paid over $300 for it. I said then why is a ring that looks exactly like this one on Etsy for $28? He went to his email and found the confirmation of purchase email for when he bought the ring. And he apparently paid $345 for it. I apologized and he said, "Love, you shouldn't be the one apologizing. I know that I can be very cheap and it's very understandable why you would believe I would pay that much for a ring. I always look for the cheapest option when it comes to everything. When it comes to you I shouldn't be cheap. I love you and you deserve the best." He immediately stood up and said, "Let's go find a jewelry shop." I started tearing up a bit cause it meant so much for him to say these words. We then went to a small business, not outlet, jewelry shop and looked at some gorgeous diamond rings. He, very nervously, said, "May I give a budget of $1,500? I said, "You know what? I don't want a whole new ring. You proposed to me with this, and I don't just want to throw the whole memory away. I would like to just replace the moss stone with a real natural, not lab-made, diamond." I could tell that meant a lot for him to hear and we told the jeweler to replace the stone with a diamond and after about a 2-hour wait there it was. The diamond was $700 so in the end he basically spent $1,045 on my ring. My beautiful diamond ring. I probably gave the biggest smile in the world and when I put it on I gave him a big hug and said, "Thank you so much, love. You've made one of my dreams come true." He got teary-eyed and this moment felt even more wonderful than when he proposed. It all felt real. I really felt like I was truly engaged and that he had taken a huge step when it comes to his cheap problem. It was definitely my favorite moment of our whole relationship. I later talked to him about getting financial counseling so that we could learn how to best communicate financially as a couple and how it might help him with his extreme frugalness. He agreed and we have already set up an appointment to talk with a financial counselor who his sister recommended. We will be getting married in the fall. In a way, I'm thankful for this experience. I feel like this is one of those beautiful situations where good came from bad. Thank you to all of you who told me to be honest with him. I feel like our relationship has just grown so much from this and I love him even more than before. I still have the moss agate stone and plan to make some kind of jewelry out of it, but for now, I cannot stop staring at my new diamond and every time I see it I get giddy. Consensus: commenters call her shallow, manipulative, and a bad person since she insisted on a natural diamond. Notable comments: couldn't help but notice that you placed an emphasis on owning a natural rather than lab-grown diamond. I hope it was sourced ethically. Honestly you sound a bit shallow. Your fiancé put a lot of thought into buying you something hand-made from Etsy, but that's not good enough for you. It's all about the dollar. Free bag. Congratulations, you made him buy you something most likely forcibly dug up by enslaved miners. Hope you're happy with yourself. Lab-grown diamonds look like natural ones and are actually ethical. Consider this if you ever remarry in the future. Oh, you also argued with this man over Legos. You're really not looking good on a moral level. Commenter 2, well enjoy being married for exactly 2 years because if you're this emotionally immature over a ring that you have to get mommy to gang up on him too then this marriage won't last long though you can enjoy your diamond mined by the hands of small children who might have died getting your precious natural stone. Commenter 3, I read the entire sequence of posts and while I am happy that you sorted this out, I think you will need in future to look back on this as the time you essentially manipulated your fiancé who was sincere in his effort to please you. Should this whole episode come back to bite you, it may be that pivotal point where you realize that your guy was already perfect as he is and that your attempts to change that say more about you than they do about him. The natural diamond thing has always been a marketing ploy and that industry is rife with abusive practices. Despite the conversation about what a diamond means, then you went above and beyond to make the guy look as cheap as possible by proving he only spent XX on it. Look up confirmation bias as that applies here. So yes you were and likely still are the TA what you put the guy you claim to love through was just not right. You have fallen into the he's sweet but if these things could just change about him he'd be perfect trap that I have fallen into myself and know from that experience that is a very poor way to approach a relationship. It more often than not results in resentment either from the person you are asking manipulating into change or from you when that change doesn't stick because the guy is just doing it to keep mama happy. This is not a healthy relationship when you need the other person to fit your fantasy ideal. Your guy is already perfect just as he is, and yet you still think and are actually excited about your fiancé improvement project as the right way to go. Frankly, and again from my own experience, it may be you will soon realize that what needs to change is within you, not him. Commenter 4, well done OP reading all your posts I think you and your fiancé have both grown emotionally in this experience. It really struck me when you said he was on the spectrum and had had a poorer upbringing, it struck me that he isn't a tight ass but is someone who is afraid of losing financial independence and struggling in the future. If you can learn to share your financial information and budget together, it will be good for both of you by bringing you closer together, and will be especially good for him if it eases his anxiety. But hey, carry on with the freebies when you can, have fun with it and make it part of your thing together. A kind man who doesn't throw his money away is a blessing, and if you two can learn together to budget and save for what you need and want, he will grow to be a man without crippling financial anxiety. I'm so glad things worked out how they did. Your handling of the situation shows how much you love and respect him, that you're ready for marriage, and that you are a mature, wise person. Good on you for working through it. Remember these same steps for future struggles. Commenter 5. Congratulations on your engagement. I hope the two of you have a long and happy life together. Stories number 22. AIO, nail tech labels me no-show 15 minutes before my appointment. I had an appointment scheduled with this nail tech for yesterday at 10 a.m. I had spent the previous night with some friends doing a staycation at a local hotel and left early the next morning to make it to my appointment, which was 30 minutes away. I arrived 5 minutes before my appointment time and saw that I was already marked as a no-show and my deposit was forfeited. Before my appointment even started, she had already given my slot to her next client. After her last message, she blocked me. For context, apparently there is a policy where you must respond within 45 minutes before your appointment to keep it. In all my years of appointments, I have never experienced a policy like this. When I booked with her last time, the only other time I saw her, I told her when I was on my way because she asked if I could come early and I said I would come as soon as I was out of work. In my opinion, this policy was not made clear at all. It was listed at the bottom of a policy list located in her Instagram story highlights. I had also confirmed my appointment with her 3 days prior and paid a deposit on the appointment. AIO. Screenshot transcriptions. Nail Tech, NT Awesome. I've received your deposit and your spot is all set and secured for February 22nd at 10 a.m. Smiling face. You'll be coming to, redacted, just in case you need the address again. Light skin tone emoji modifier. I can't wait to see what you've got for me next. Reply, thank you SM, looking forward to it. Commenter 2. Reply, Wednesday at 10:10 a.m. Hi, can I do this for my appointment on Sat? Picture of nails attached. NT, of course. I can't wait. NT, 9 o'clock the day of post, Saturday. Good morning smiling face. You still good to make it to your 10 a.m. appointment today? NT, 9:46 a.m. Good morning smiling face. Failure to respond to your confirmation message has unfortunately resulted in a cancellation of your appointment and you will be considered a no-show for today. To book again you must send a new deposit. March's schedule will be ready soon. I apologize for any inconveniences. Reply, 9:55 a.m. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm here. New text, I was at the hotel and didn't see this. NT, 9:57 a.m. Unfortunately, I already told my next client to be on the way. Would you be interested in coming back when she's done? Reply, no thank you. I wasn't aware of confirming working the 45 minutes BC. We didn't do this the last time and I already drove here to be here at my appointment time on time. NT, I apologize for any inconveniences. My policy states that if you do not respond within 45 minutes, your appointment will be cancelled. We did not do this last time. Beckacuse, you texted me at 9 a.m. to confirm your 2 p.m. appointment and told me you were on the way an hour before you were scheduled, which is usually when I send my confirmation message. Again, I apologize for any inconvenience. Reply, TBH, I'm pretty frustrated that I drove 30 minutes to be 5 minutes early to my appointment only to find out it's cancelled. I wish it was sent in the booking message to be on the lookout for a message 45 minutes before the appointment. I now see it in your policies section, but I think it would have been helpful to get that in the initial message. I don't have Instagram notifications on and was driving to my appointment 15 minutes after it was sent. I think that you're a fantastic nail tech and your work is amazing, but unfortunately I won't be booking in the future. I wish you all the best. NT, 12:01 p.m, TBH, I'm just as frustrated as you are. I spend my time writing out these policies, making them as easy as possible to understand just for no one to read them before booking, only to run into issues like these. It's a 30-minute drive but you didn't think to tell me you were on the way. Frowning face, it's your responsibility to read all of the policies that I have in the place before booking. They are there to keep you and I safe and to ensure your appointment runs smoothly. I'm not responsible for your failure to read and abide by them. Good day. Top comments. Commenter 1. Check your payment method to see if you can rescind due to no service provided. Commenter 2. This is an absurd policy. If you have put money down to secure an appointment, that is the confirmation. Sure, if you had a 10 a.m. and didn't get there until 10:01 a.m., then she'd be a terrible practitioner technically but well within her rights to cancel. Or if you hadn't put a deposit down and ghosted her ahead of time, even if you just didn't see the message, I can sort of see her point. But canceling you before your appointment, You can't no-show a 10 a.m. appointment at 9:15, it literally hasn't happened yet, after you had already confirmed before, I'm looking forward to it. And put a deposit down. And what gall she has to tell her next client to be on the way during the time your scheduled appointment with a deposit applied is for, which hasn't even happened yet. I'd charge back on your credit card and write terrible Yelp reviews. Policies like this are not applicable if they're located in her Instagram story highlights, and if she wants to enforce them, she needs proof you actually agreed to them, like a checkbox on your deposit checkout form. This is an easy win. If I put a deposit down, I do not respond to confirmation requests. I have money on the line. That's my confirmation. I'll be there or I'll cancel, and if I do neither, you can keep my deposit, leave me alone. Please, for the sake of everything good in business, charge this deposit back. Report is as service not provided. You will absolutely win. Update post. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for all of your responses. I did not expect this post to blow up like it did. For those wondering, yes, this was a real situation I experienced and not something I made up for karma, lol. I've seen some questions about if I agreed to the policies. The answer is no, the policies were in an Instagram story highlight and at no point was I directed by the nail tech to find policies there. In fact, there was no mention of policies in our messages. I am currently working to get the deposit refunded. I don't feel comfortable sharing the tech's information publicly, but I have been and will continue to tell people local to me about the experience. As frustrated as I am with the situation, I don't want to be responsible for sending the wrath of the internet to this individual. I posted this with the intention of receiving honest feedback about my responsibility in this situation. I do take accountability in that I could have been more diligent with locating and reading policies. With that being said, I also believe that this policy was not made clear and that policy itself is ridiculous. I will not be associating further with this individual. Through sharing my experience, I received an overwhelming number of nail artist recommendations close to me. I look forward to exploring these talented artists. I also ended up doing my own nails and giving myself a gel mani at home. Sum of comments. Commenter, 100% am too cheap RN to pay to get my nails done even though I'm tempted, haha. Also hope you file a CB for the deposit. Reply, I did. Commenter, curious as to what the deposit amount was? I didn't see it on your original post. What if you are not on Instagram? How can she justify enforcing this policy if that is the only place it is listed? You obviously don't even need her services, you did a great job on your nails. Reply, it was $15. I was prepared to just eat it, but so many people saying I would be justified in asking for it back encouraged me to at least try. The Snoopy blanket. I don't know how to edit the post, but for those wondering, I got the Snoopy blanket from Home Goods. I got it around the holidays though, so it may not be out anymore. I believe that another poster shared the link description of it online though. I think it was Berkshire Skiing Snoopy or something, lol. Editor's note, marked as ongoing because OOP hasn't fully received the money back yet, even though she did initiate the chargeback in the update. Stories number 23. Having female friends has ruined my hopes of dating. Any advice on how to regain hope and confidence? I'm a 23-year-old male. I'm friends with a variety of people from different backgrounds. However, something that's been extremely common among my female friends scares me. Example 1, a female friend 1 tells me about how a guy came up to her and expressed feelings for her. She told me she hated every second of it and said the guy was a gross creep. I saw the guy and he was normal looking and was actually really kind. I've talked to him before. Example 2, a female friend 2 tells me about how this guy came up to her table while she was eating at a restaurant and she messaged me, get over here and get this guy away from me. I go over there and just tell him that, hey sorry, this seat is mine, it was a 2-person table, and he said, no worries bro, have a nice day, and was also really friendly. Female friend proceeds to tell me how creepy he was. Example 3, a female friend 3 tells me about how a friend she had that was male asked her out on a date and she said she was so mad that the guy would ruin their friendship by asking her that. This all makes me extremely jaded and just never want to ask out anyone ever again. Any advice for people who might have had these same thoughts before? Stories number 24. Aita for not caring about the company image after my boss stole from me. Had to complete an internship for my degree. I decided to join a startup to learn. Instead, had to figure out everything on my own, zero guidance, and was a glorified salesman, instead of learning. Since it was paid, $150 a month, not that much TBH, and opportunities were rare during COVID, I went along with it, even with his ridiculous targets. I was the best performer, and even I could only get 10% of the target. For internship, I had to work on the social media all by myself, and shoot ads on the days off using equipment I had begged from friends. 5 months in, he told us at end of the month that we weren't going to be paid, and wouldn't be paid unless we were meeting his targets. I politely told him I would be leaving, and pointed out I wouldn't be even able to go meet clients without gas money. 25% of my pay was used for gas. He got upset at that, and started talking about how he paid for my salary, and took us out for drinks every month. He would pay for the food, we had to buy our own drinks, and how his grandpa was dying and he needed me, I was leaving him when things were bad, was in it only for the money. The other employees left within the next month. I had dropped off a hard disk containing all my files to his sister, worth about $40, significant to a college student. 3 months passed by as I was busy with my report. When I asked for it, he claims to not have it. He cut the call, and his sister called me half an hour later, swearing she doesn't remember me dropping off anything. I was always dropping off stuff. He told me that I had sent the files to him over mail, which was a lie, because there's a text conversation where he asked me to drop off the files at home. He then talked about how even if I had given, it was my responsibility to have come and taken it back, and started going off about on how little my work meant anyway, and not worth a penny of his time. Unfortunately, apart from screenshot, I didn't have any proof that I ever gave a hard disk. I told a few of my friends who started commenting on the company's Instagram, asking him to return it, that he was a bad boast, and calling the product terrible. Many of them had actually bought it for my sake. It's a very small IG page, barely 200 followers, so any comments stick out, and now he's calling me, demanding me to take down the comments as it's hurting the company's image and that I didn't care anything about the company, and I just used him. He's also threatening to take legal action for slander. Am I the asshole for not caring about the image, and should I tell my friends to back off? DR, my boss stole my hard disk, my friends trashed the company's Instagram. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, NTA. I get your frustration and it seems like a bad company. Just one question because I'm a little confused, did his sister work for the company? Reply, no she didn't, the company was run out of his house, with the ground floor acting as the office. I gave it to her because he wasn't at home at the time. Sorry for the confusion. Commenter 2, honestly still NTA but not the brightest in hindsight to give company stuff to someone who doesn't work for the company. Just a life lesson I guess but doesn't change my judgment. Reply, absolutely. Hindsight is 20/20, I guess I've always been too trusting. Will definitely not repeat this again, and I'm going to make sure to document everything if a similar situation ever pops up. I count myself lucky for having gotten off this cheaply and that I didn't have any important files in it. Commenter 3, first off NTA. Next, if you are in the US a couple things you should know. Refusing to pay you for time worked is wage theft. You don't still have to be working for him to report it and go after the dollars owed. If your State Department of Labor handles wage issues, go to them. Otherwise, report it to the Federal Department of Labor. Second, as long as you and or your friends aren't posting anything on IG that is factually untrue, then he has no case for slander. Make sure the posts are opinions and or verifiable facts. Reply, they've posted mostly things like how the packaging is sketchy, and about the organic nature. It's actually a long life instant drink, and I found out on the last month that he was actually putting the date of package with a sticker on the day before we placed them in supermarkets or to vendors, instead of putting them on when they were actually packaged. That definitely influenced me into leaving as well. OOP added this in the comments. I think the startup actually had a decent product, but it was just ruined by my ex-boss's greed and inability to support us. Lot of times when he just dropped the ball. Either way, I'm glad they're both doing much better, and thank you for your kind words. Update, I'm so very grateful to all of your responses. I really did feel bad, not about the hard disk, but about him saying all the work I poured into the company was worthless. All of you made me genuinely feel better, and I'm very grateful to everyone who took a moment to respond. After my friends had posted, I got a message from the sister the next day, who said I was being inappropriate and it showed a lot about my character. I thought this was rich, coming from a person who was either A, willing to lie to my face just to save her brother's ego, or B, was so very inept that she didn't even remember me giving her the only ever thing ever. Really had to resist the urge to respond, since my lawyer friend warned me they might be collecting evidence against me. Later that night, at around 10 p.m., my dad got a call from my ex-boss, threatening me with legal action. My dad, God bless him, didn't even know who he was, and told him he shouldn't be disturbing people at night, and cut the phone. Only afterwards when my mum asked who it was, did she inform him that it was my ex-boss, to which he just shrugged and went back to scrolling memes. Got a mild chuckle out of that. My mother asked me about it, and I let her know what he had done. She ended up calling him, and my ex-boss ended up pleading with her to stop the Insta reviews, and even offered to come over and talk to me. She pointed out about the hurtful comments on my work and the unpaid salary, and then cut him off and said she'll see what she could do. She sat me down, and told me I could choose to bear a grudge, or forgive him. That it was my place to decide, but she felt it was pointless of me to carry on, since his company seemed doomed anyway. I guess at this point I'd had enough as well, and decided to cut him slack, asking my friends to knock it off, thanking them for their support. I didn't ask them to delete comments, my ex-boss could do that himself. Afterwards, the VC who was investing in the startup apparently got to know about this incident, and scolded my boss, and even offered to compensate me for the hard disk. He knew about my work for the company pretty well, and was skeptical about the ex-boss's description of the event. I'm fairly satisfied with how things have turned out, and even more about the hard disk, I'm satisfied at having gotten some sense of closure. For a month after leaving the job, I hadn't really slept well, and I found it a little difficult to talk to new people, who was odd for me since I was a complete extrovert before that. I'm hoping it'll get better with time and I'll be back to my own self soon. Once again, thanks for all of your love. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Great. Did you get the compensation? Reply. Yup, got the money deposited last night, laughing face. Commenter 2. Nice. You should perhaps talk to the VC investor and see if they are hiring. Reply. I did consider it, but at this point I want to put this whole thing behind me and start afresh, smiley face. Stories number 25. Finally got the baby to sleep, fiancé then came home, made him scream and left me alone to deal with it. We have a 9-week-old baby and lately he's been super fussy, like screaming all the time where all I can really do is hold him to my chest and wait for him to cry himself to sleep. This process usually takes a few hours and is really exhausting both physically and mentally. So tonight I had finally gotten the baby to fall asleep on my chest, so I moved him to his co-sleeping bed since he absolutely hates his bassinet and has been refusing to sleep for very long in it lately. Then I fell asleep because I was exhausted. A little while later my fiancé came home, saw the baby and I sleeping, and picked up the baby from his co-sleeping bed and put him in his bassinet. Of course the baby started screaming, which woke me up. I was really irritated and told him that since he woke the baby he should be the one to get him back to sleep since I had just done that and am too tired to do it again. He tried to get the baby to calm down for a few minutes with the bottle but ended up getting overwhelmed by the screaming, threw his hands up in the air, and walked out. I know he was initially just trying to help, but I'm so freaking frustrated and angry and tired right now and just need to vent. Like he literally just came home, made the baby cry, and then left me to deal with it right after I had just put him to sleep after dealing with it all day. Stories number 26. Some kid in the mall mocked me so I mocked him back. Repost from another sub. For context, I'm 16, I went to the mall with my family to get some groceries, you know, typical stuff. When we were checking out, there was a child, I don't know where their parents went, making faces at me, mocking my glasses and bracelet, but I ignored it. A short moment passed, and I saw the same kid again, begging his mother to buy him ice cream. I overheard their conversation. Mom, can I have some ice cream? The chocolate one with a lot of sprinkles, the kid asked. It's almost dinner time. We'll get it next time, the mom said reasonably. At that moment, I let the intrusive thoughts win and went for it. I walked up to the shop, ordered the most delicious-looking ice cream, a vanilla cone dipped in chocolate and covered in sprinkles, and then strolled past the kid, eating it as deliciously as possible. I looked down at him mockingly, I'm like 180 centimeters tall, feeling victorious. Moments later, the kid started crying and throwing a tantrum as I walked away toward the parking lot. I could still hear him crying and screaming in the distance. Legend says that kid's still crying to this day. Stories number 27. Aita for refusing to train my replacement after I was fired. I, 28M, worked at my company for 5 years. I was good at my job, never had issues, and even trained multiple new hires. A few months ago, we got a new manager, and from day one, she clearly didn't like me. No real reason, just constant nitpicking. Last week, I was called into a meeting and fired. No warning, no performance issues, just we're going in a different direction. I was pissed but stayed professional. Then came the kicker. HR asked me to stay for 2 more weeks to train my replacement. I laughed in their faces. They fired me, but now they expect me to help the new guy learn everything I know. No way. I told them I wouldn't be coming back, and they started panicking, saying I was being unprofessional and should leave on good terms. Now, my ex-coworkers are texting me, saying I've screwed them over because my replacement has no idea what he's doing, and everything is falling apart. My old manager even emailed me, practically begging me to reconsider. Aita for walking away and letting them deal with the mess they created. Stories number 28. Aita for making my brother's fiancé take a paternity test before paying for their wedding. My 32F younger brother, 28M, has always been a bit impulsive. He met his fiancée, Emma, 27F, last year, and within 6 months, they were engaged. A month after that, she got pregnant. Our family was shocked but supportive. My parents are not wealthy, but I've done well for myself, and my brother asked if I could help pay for their wedding. I agreed, with one condition, a paternity test. Before you judge, hear me out. Emma was dating someone else right before getting together with my brother. I have nothing against her, but the timeline of her pregnancy made me suspicious. My brother is positive the baby is his, but I wasn't convinced. If I was going to shell out $20,000 for a wedding, I wanted to make sure he wasn't being played. Emma was furious. She called me cruel and said I was trying to humiliate her. My brother was torn but eventually agreed because he really needed the money. The test came back, he's the father. I apologized, and I thought that was the end of it, but Emma refuses to forgive me. She disinvited me from the wedding and told my brother she never wanted to see me again. My brother is upset but says he has to side with his future wife. My parents think I was out of line, but some friends say I was just being cautious. So, AITA for making her take a paternity test before paying for their wedding. Stories number 29. AIO to my husband, M29, almost killing me, F29, during a prank. Obligatory throwaway because I'm active in a lot of subs that would identify where I live and what I do. So the other day I, F29, had to have a broken tooth pulled and hardware put in for a fake tooth to be put in later on. It was one of my bottom back molars, so can't be seen and a pretty big tooth. I figured it'd be an easy in and out procedure, but because of extra damage to the area and my horrible fear of dentists, I elected to be fully sedated for the procedure. When all was said and done I was really loopy, but my husband, M29, drove me home and all was well. I vaguely remember he tucked me into bed and told me to rest and feel better. I suddenly woke up to a harsh feeling in my throat and not being able to breathe. I was super out of it from the drugs and my brain just couldn't think of what to do. I dropped out of bed and crawled frantically, but it's like my brain couldn't work to figure out I was choking and needed to give myself the Heimlich. By the time I thought about it, I was already running out of air and it was like I couldn't get out of the hallway in time to find something to save myself with. It's hard to get into it because it was horrifying and painful and so fast and I was so out of it, but I ended up passing out in the hallway trying to find something to save myself with. I really thought this is it. My baby is 2 rooms over. My husband is home. He's going to find me dead, but I woke up who knows how long after to my husband crying and holding me. He'd apparently given me the Heimlich and saved my life. At first you're just grateful, you know. But as my brain started to reboot I thought, wait, wasn't I in bed? Wait, how did he know I was suffocating? Wait, what was I suffocating on? Wait. Well, it was a tooth, not a real tooth, some cheesy fake tooth you'd find at the dollar store in a kid's toy. How'd it get in my throat? Well, that took longer to understand, but I figured out pretty quickly from my husband's blubbering that it was supposed to be funny. My husband's a prankster and wants to be an influencer even though he doesn't really have the following. He thought it'd be funny to pop a fake tooth in my mouth and have me wake up still loopy from the drugs and think that a tooth had fallen out from the hole in my gum. He was recording from the baby monitor, hoping to get something funny that would go viral. I have no idea what to do here. I'm so mad. I could have died. If he wouldn't have been watching the camera footage that I've watched over and over again I'd be dead. I was so drugged up I couldn't think my way out of it and he just put something in my mouth for me to swallow and die from. I've watched the footage a million times and every time it makes me more sick to my stomach. I have no idea how long I was in the hall before he found me, but it was a few minutes before you can hear the gasping and crying really faintly in the footage. Could it have happened at 30 seconds? A minute? 2 minutes? He keeps crying and apologizing but every time it makes me want to hit him. I don't know what to think. I'm just filled with rage and disgust. I could have died over a prank and I don't know how to process it. All he's done for the past day is cry and apologize. I know he didn't mean to hurt me but I can't even look at him. I know it's only been a day but when will I be able to think my way out of this? How should I go about responding to all of this? It's like my brain is still stuck from when I was crawling through the hallway. So Reddit, AIO when it was an accident prank gone wrong. Edit, so this has blown up way more than I expected. To answer some common questions, he's always been a prankster and always liked the idea of randomly blowing up on SM. It's not his whole identity, but he watches a lot of TikTok and thinks this kind of thing is hilarious. No, he's never done anything this bad. He can be thoughtless but normally isn't careless. Yes, he's very apologetic. I just can't think to hear it right now because I can't stop replaying it in my head. and watch the footage over and over. Y'all need to stop assuming everything everyone on Reddit is fake. While I wish this situation is, it isn't. I'll take it as a compliment to very expensive English major that you think I'm a bot, but no. A few people have messaged me asking for his account info. I'm not going to let my own husband be doxxed. No matter what happens, that comes back on me too. I have a lot of thinking to do and a lot of replies to go through. I'm trying to get through them all, but this was an overwhelming couple days even before this flood of responses, so be patient with me. I also have a baby and feel like hell. My sister is coming to stay with me for the night, but she lives about 3 hours away. She doesn't know everything that happened, but she knows I'm not okay. Hubby has asked to stay. I said he can until my sister gets here for the baby's sake, but he needs to go across town to his brother's for the night, at least. Thank you to those who have been kind. For those who haven't, what was the point, really? Like, why are you taking joy in making me feel worse or trying to discredit me? What does that get you? Edit 2, my sister is here. My husband went to his brother's for the night. He had a talk with my sister while I took care of the baby, and she's going to break down what he said to her when we sit down together this morning. I haven't talked to her yet. I'm still in my room and trying to absorb everything that's happened and what everyone is saying. One of our friends found this post and sent it to him. He's been reading the comments and sent a few messages with apologies but acknowledged he needed to give me some space to think. We are going to meet tomorrow or the next day, when the anesthesia is entirely out of my system and I'm entirely clear-headed to have a real talk about what happened. Yes, I have the footage. No, I haven't gone to the police. This is a lot. I went from thinking I was dying to realizing that terrifying moment was my husband's fault. My whole world has been flipped upside down over a fake dollar store tooth. I don't believe he's a sociopath. I think he's just stupid. He's very apologetic, but my trust is broken and I don't know where to go from here. I'll do a proper update after we talk and I make some decisions. I'm taking all these posts into account, but there's so much I can't possibly respond to everyone. Also, to the person who called me abusive because I said I want to hit my husband. Seriously? I almost died and I say that I can't stand to hear his apologies. It's hyperbole. Don't know if you'd understand what that means, but I felt so physically weak I couldn't have swatted away a fruit fly. Sounds like projection. Maybe you need more help than I do. TLDR, my husband put a fake tooth in my mouth while I was recovering from dental surgery and went to film my reaction to finding it. I choked on it, passed out, nearly died. Now he's crying and begging for forgiveness, has left the house, and I have a lot of thinking to do. I owe to the fact I just can't get past what happened, even though he is truly apologetic,